Hey guys, tonight we step out of the noisy present and into the hush of an older world, one paved in lantern-lit stone, soaked in perfume and poetry, where beauty was currency and truth wore a painted face. You're standing at the edge of the Yoshiwara, licensed pleasure district of Edo period Japan. The sky is dimming. A light mist curls through the alleyways, tinged with smoke from braziers and sweet sake. Everything glows gold and red, from the lacquered hair ornaments to the painted paper signs fluttering in the evening air. Behind the lattice screens and beaded curtains, voices rise in practiced laughter, music, and something else, weariness maybe. Something heavy beneath all the powdered skin and practiced smiles. You step closer, swallowed by the rhythm of getter sandals clicking on stone, of silk brushing against silk, of women turning their heads at perfect angles because their lives depend on it. And tonight, you're not just walking through the most famous red light district in Japan. You're going to learn the parts no one ever paints, the hidden, messy, human bits, the pregnancies, the cover-ups, the cracked pots, and the cracked hearts behind them. And yeah, you probably won't survive this one, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see where everyone's listening from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You enter the Yoshiwara, not as a man or woman of money, but as an observer, eyes wide, heart pacing slowly, trying to take it all in. The streets are narrow but crowded. Banners flutter overhead like gossip passed hand to hand. Lanterns hang from poles shaped like stylized trees, painting everyone in soft amber. To your left, a group of men argue playfully outside a tea house, their robes expensive and their laughter louder than it needs to be. One clutches a fan painted with a crane. He thinks it makes him mysterious. It does not, but it's not them you're watching, it's her, the courtesan. She's gliding toward you in layers of crimson and gold. Her hair, a black storm held in place by combs worth more than your house. Her steps are slow, deliberate, because every move she makes is a show. Behind her, two Camaro young girls, barely out of childhood, follow in matching robes. Eyes downturned, hands full of fan-folded notes and trinkets. This is no geisha. She's an iron, the highest of the high-ranking courtesans, a woman trained not only in the art of pleasure, but in poetry, music, calligraphy, conversation, fashion, and maintaining the illusion that you might matter more than all the others. But here's the truth. She's tired, and not just because her shoes weigh 5 pounds each. Her smile, exquisite though it is worn thin at the edges. Her gaze, half-lidded and beguiling, is calculating, because everything here has a cost, and everyone here is for sale. That includes the courtesans, especially the courtesans. You pass another group, less gilded, louder. These are the girls, the Yujo. Their job is simpler, to fill beds. Their homes are cramped, their schedules brutal, and their clients far less poetic. No poetry, no elaborate hairpins, just painted faces, sore feet, and the constant math of survival. The Yoshiwara is a fantasy, built on rules. But beneath that lacquered surface, blood, stress, debt, secrets. And tonight we're diving into one of the biggest, messiest secrets of all. What happened when one of them got pregnant? It happened a lot. The numbers are lost to time. Of course, records weren't always kept for the kind of women history preferred to forget. But the signs are there, hidden behind euphemisms, vanishing acts, and mysterious illnesses. The courtesan's body was her livelihood, and if her body changed, her career could vanish in a whisper. Historians still argue whether courtesans were truly owned or merely contracted, whether they had power or just the illusion of it. But here's what we do know. They were rarely free to choose what happened to them, especially not when it came to children, because the entire floating world, the Yukio, was not built for mothers. It was built for desire, for fantasy, for illusion, and nothing shatters illusion faster than a baby bump. So how did they deal with it? You'll see. Some of it's heartbreaking, some of it's oddly ingenious, some of it is flat out insane, but all of it is real. You walk past the courtesan now, pretending not to stare, and she does the same. Because everyone is pretending here, pretending to flirt, pretending to care, pretending that nothing ever changes, and that behind the folding screens, time stands still. But you know better, behind those silk curtains and mirrored hairpieces. A storm is always brewing, and soon, someone's going to have to decide what to do with it. You wake up inside one of the smaller houses tucked into the Yoshiwara's Mesa place, where the curtains are thinner, the laughter more forced, and the perfume smells like it's trying a little too hard. This isn't where the Oirins sleep, it's where the others do. The girls who don't glide, they hustle. Your futon's barely warm from the night before. Someone's already clattering dishes in the kitchen. Another girl hums tunelessly, pacing the narrow corridor as she pins her hair in place. She's younger than you, new to this world. Still giggles when customers say something cheeky. Still flinches when the old woman who runs this place shouts. You used to flinch too. Now you just blink slowly, adjust your robe, and brace for the day ahead. Breakfast is rice, pickles, and silence. Except for the occasional cough, you eat like someone trying not to be noticed. Because if the wrong person does notice you, if they see the puffiness in your face, the tightness in your waistband, you'll be rested. That's what they call it, rested. Like you're a tired horse and someone finally noticed. But there's no rest in it. You've seen it before. Girls sent away. Sometimes they come back looking thinner, quieter, missing something they don't talk about. Sometimes they don't come back at all. Pregnancy, in this world, is less a blessing and more a breach of contract. You've been doing the math lately, counting days like other women count coins. Every cramp, every skipped cycle, every strange craving is logged in your mind like a quiet drumbeat. You haven't told anyone, not even your closest friend here, the one who shares her hairpins and half her lunch on bad days. Because the moment it slips, it's not your secret anymore. So you wait. You pretend everything is fine. You paint your lips, you powder your cheeks. You put on the robe that fits a little tighter now, and hope no one notices the way you breathe deeper, slower, trying to hide the nausea. In the common room, the Okia mother sits on a cushion, checking the nights, appointments. She doesn't look up as you pass. That's either very good or very bad. You're not sure which. Here's the thing about courtesans. In Edo, beneficially, they weren't supposed to get pregnant. Some houses included anti-pregnancy clauses in their contracts. Others simply assumed the risk belonged to the girl. And there were methods, if you were desperate or lucky enough to hear of them. Contraception, limited and questionable. There were herbal pessaries made from things like silphium or wild yam if you could get them. Some women used vinegars, bamboo paper soaked in oil, or sea sponge fragments as a barrier. Effectiveness, debatable. Comfort, probably non-existent. And then there were abortions. Quirky fact, midwives in Edo, Japan weren't just for delivering babies, they also performed illegal abortions. These weren't clinical procedures. They were mixtures of harsh herbs, mugwort, pennyroyal, safflower taken as teas or tinctures, meant to provoke the body into rejection. If that didn't work, pressure applied to the abdomen. Vigorous massage, sometimes worse. The practice was common enough to earn its own name, yamihare, dark cleansing. Historians still argue whether these methods were widely known among courtesans or mostly whispered between servants and older women. Either way, it was dangerous, often deadly. And yet for many it was still safer than being discovered pregnant, because discovery came with consequences. If your patron found out, you could be cast out, discarded like yesterday's kimono. If the house found out, you might be locked away, treated, or sent to a nunnery, or sold, or worse. And if you kept the baby, now that was the rarest path of all. Some did, somehow, especially if the father was powerful, rich, and willing to support her quietly. A hidden house in the countryside, an allowance, a retired life behind a wall of silence. But that kind of outcome was mythic-like, a folktale girls whispered to themselves when the nights were long and the cramps didn't come. More often, a girl gave birth in secret. The baby went to a wet nurse, or to a temple orphanage. Some temples accepted unwanted children as offerings, not quite as poetic as it sounds. Others simply disappeared. You've heard of one girl who kept hers hidden until the 7th month, wrapped in layers and silence. She vanished. No one said a word. Her shoes were still in the hall the next morning, neatly lined up. You try not to think about that. You're late for your appointment. The client tonight is especially rich, not especially cruel. He's middle-aged, polite, smells faintly of pickled ginger. He doesn't ask much. That's a blessing. You smile, you flatter. You pour the tea with steady hands and hope he doesn't notice the way your stomach knots when he touches your wrist. When it's over, he leaves a few coins on the tray. Not much. Enough for the house to take half, and you to afford a new hairpin if you're frugal. Or maybe a little rice wine. You don't drink lately though, just in case. You slip into the bath afterward, and try not to cry. The warm water wraps around your tired body like a second skin. You float for a moment, feeling weightless, almost free. But the moment doesn't last. Freedom never does here. Back in your room, you stare at the ceiling and wonder, what if? What if you left? What if you kept the baby? What if no one noticed? What if someone already has? The wooden beams above your head creak softly as the house shifts. In the wind, you're not the first girl to feel this way, and you won't be the last. The next morning, you wake earlier than usual, not because of any noise, but because your body has decided sleep is optional. It's the kind of early that makes everything feel unreal when the lanterns are still flickering from the night before. And outside, the street cats haven't even started fighting over scraps. You lie there for a moment, just breathing. There's a chill in the air. Autumn's creeping in. You can feel it in the way the tatami mat doesn't warm under your skin as fast as it used to. You pull your robe tighter, rise quietly, and slip out before the others stir. Downstairs the courtyard smells like whetstone and crushed chrysanthemum. Someone's washed the walk. You take a seat on the edge of the step, the wood cool beneath you, and let the silence wrap around your shoulders. She joins you. No sound, just the soft rustle of fabric and the way her shadow stretches beside yours. She hands you a rice ball wrapped in seaweed still warm. You hadn't even asked. She just knew. You're not eating enough, she says softly. You smile. You're not supposed to notice. She doesn't return the smile, just looks at you. Too long, too quiet. She knows. You don't say it aloud, but the air is heavy with it. It sits between you like a third body, breathing quietly, waiting to be named. I heard of someone, she says, eyes down, voice careful. In Asakusa, a woman who helps. Real gentle, they say. Clean, too, not like the others. You nod. You don't answer, because answering makes it real. And if you say no, she'll stop talking. If you say yes, you're already halfway there. So you do the only safe thing. You eat the rice ball. That day the house is unusually busy. A minor noble's nephew is visiting, and the best girls are paraded like silken dolls, polished and perfect. You stay in the background. That's your gift now disappearing. You scrub teacups, carry cushions, sweep the walkway 3 times, even though it doesn't need it. Anything to stay unnoticed. But the Okiya mother sees everything. Her eyes flick to your waist, linger a half-second too long, then move on. You try not to crumble. There's a tradition in the courtesan world. When a girl becomes too ill to work, she's sent away to a resting house. No one returns from these resting houses with rested bones. Some come back thinner, broken. Some vanish entirely. The girls whisper stories of medicine women who do what they must, of temples that take girls in and never speak of them again. One story says a girl was taken to a hidden mountain shrine where a priestess performed a ceremony with salt, paper charms, and bitter root tea. The girl screamed for hours, then walked home in silence. Historians still argue whether these stories reflect real underground practices or are just cautionary tales twisted by time and terror. But for girls like you, they're more than stories. They're the air you breathe. That night, you kneel before your small altar, the one wedged into the corner of your room. A flickering candle, a stick of incense, a chipped figurine of Canaan, the goddess of mercy. You pray, not for a miracle, just for clarity, for a sign. Instead, your stomach turns. Not violently, just a slow roll like the tide coming in. You breathe deeply, one hand resting over your ribs. You know, you knew yesterday, you knew last week. After lights out, she sneaks into your room. The girl with the seaweed rice ball and the quiet kindness. I asked around, she whispers, kneeling beside you. The woman in Asakusa takes 2 copper coins and a bit of silk. She doesn't ask names. You don't answer again because you don't know if you're ready to decide. She takes your hand and leaves a folded scrap of cloth in your palm. When she's gone, you open it. Inside, 2 coins and a ribbon the color of dusk. It's not silk, but it's close. The next day, the Okiya mother says nothing, but you catch her eyeing the younger girls more closely, preparing replacements, rotating the stock. She hasn't said anything about you, but it's coming. You can feel it in the air, like a storm behind a paper wall. You spend that afternoon pacing the narrow alley behind the tea house, watching the wind stir the hanging lanterns, You think about your mother, what little you remember. The way she braided your hair, her rough hands, the smell of roasted barley on her robe. Would she have wanted this for you? Would she have been proud? You think not. You return to your room and kneel again. This time you don't ask for a sign. This time you just say goodbye. To what exactly, you're not sure. To possibility, maybe to the version of yourself who believed love might be enough. That night, you pack a small bundle, coins, the ribbon, a bit of dried fish wrapped in paper. You slip out at dawn, just before the street cleaners stir, your feet whispering over the stones. Asakusa isn't far, but it feels like a different country. The woman's house is low and plain, no signage, just a bamboo curtain and a faint smell of mint and ash. You knock once, softly. The door opens. She doesn't ask your name, doesn't ask who the father is, just looks at you and nods inside. The walls are bare, a single mat, a bowl of herbs, a steaming kettle. Everything smells of earth and steam, and time. She tells you to lie down. You do. Your heart is beating like a taiko drum. You close your eyes. You think of the ribbon. You think of the girl who gave it to you. You think of tomorrow, and for the first time in weeks you rest. You wake to light, slanting through the paper window, warm and golden, as if the sun is trying to apologize for yesterday. Your body aches, not sharp pain, not danger, but the dull throb of something having passed, like a tide retreating, leaving the shore quiet but changed. The woman brings you warm broth, miso perhaps. You don't ask. You drink slowly, grateful for the salt, the heat, the fact that your hands can still hold a cup without trembling. She places a folded cloth on your lap and vanishes without a word. You won't see her again. That's how this works. You leave before noon, wrapped in a shawl that doesn't quite belong to you. It smells like camphor and old rice sacks. Your feet carry you through Asakusa's maze of alleys. People walk past without seeing you. You are invisible, safe, or something like it. Back at the Okia, no one says anything. She greets you with a glance, then returns to knotting her sash. There is no ceremony, no welcome. Just shared silence between girls who understand that words are often heavier than deeds. You don't perform that night. Instead, you wash teacups again, polishing, rinsing, drying. A rhythm so familiar it becomes its own lullaby. You listen to the laughter from the rooms upstairs and feel nothing. Not jealousy, not longing, just space, like a page turned. The next morning, the Okia mother calls you in. You bow low, knees on the mat, spine perfectly straight. She studies you like a statue. Her fingers tap her fan once, twice. Are you well? She asks. Finally, you nod. Good. I've accepted an invitation for you. A new client. Merchant class. Salt trader. Keep your answers short, your eyes lower than his, and your humor gentle. You bow again. Meeting clients after time away is always strange. You forget how performative it all is. The laughs that aren't yours. The words you never wanted to say. The hunger that's not about food, but you do it, because that's what survival demands. Performance. He's not cruel. That's a surprise. He talks about weather and rice prices, and how his son wants to be a poet. You listen, nod at the right moments, pour sake like your fingers are rivers. He leaves early, drops 2 coins on the tray. Doesn't touch you that night. You sit by the fire. She joins you, as she always does. Says nothing at first. Just peels an orange and hands you half. Did it hurt? She asks, voice barely above the crackle of flame. You nod once, but not as much as staying. She nods back, accepting that as truth, because it is. Quirky fact. Some courtesans believed that wearing specific charmsteine, jade pendants shaped like cranes or foxes could protect them from conception. They'd hide them in their sashes, sew them into the hem of their kimono. One girl even swore by a charm shaped like a frog, claimed it had kept her childless for 4 years straight. Historians still argue whether such beliefs were rooted in actual folk medicine, or just desperate hope wrapped in symbolism. You wonder if you'll sew a frog into your sash someday. Later, in the stillness of your room, you find the ribbon, tucked beneath your pillow, curled like a sleeping creature. You hold it in your fingers. Remember how gently it was placed in your hand. How that one gesture had felt like an entire sentence without words. You tie it around your wrist. You wear it the next day. No one comments, but she sees and smiles. Time moves strangely now. Some days it stretches like spun sugar, thin and endless. Others, it snaps forward and you barely catch your breath. You take on more clients, slowly, nothing flashy, just enough to keep the Okio mother pleased and the ledger balanced. You begin dancing again. The first time back on stage, your knees tremble like rice stalks in wind, but your arms remember, your feet remember. The music rises, and you become someone else, someone fluid, someone beautiful, someone who has never known what it means to bleed for your choices. The applause is soft but real. You bow, eyes low. You breathe deep. One of the newer girls, barely 50, cheeks still soft from childhood, asks if your ribbon is a gift from a lover. You smile and shake your head. It's a gift from someone who saw me. She blinks, unsure what that means. That's okay, she'll learn. Courtesans often had these small, simple, steamy declarations of identity in a world that tried to strip them down to roles. A particular comb, a flower always tucked on the same side, a perfume only they wore. The Oiran were experts in this, each cultivating a distinct aura, a brand before branding existed. Yours is a ribbon the color of dusk. It's enough at night. The house sleeps. The lanterns burn low. You sit in the courtyard and stare at the moon, thinking of all the girls who came before you, who left, who vanished, who were sent to resting houses and never came back. You think of the myths, how some say the moon is a mirror, showing not the sky, but your true self. You wonder what it sees when it looks down at you. Do you look like a survivor, or just a girl with too many secrets tied around her wrist? The wind stirs the trees. Somewhere, a dog barks. A bell rings faintly in the distance. Temple or tea, it's impossible to tell. You draw your knees to your chest and close your eyes, and for once, you feel not fine, but steady. And in this life, that's enough. The leaves begin to turn. In Kyoto, autumn doesn't arrive with a shout. It creeps in quietly, leaf by leaf, one golden edge at a time. You notice it first in the chill of your sleeves at morning tea, the way your breath ghosts on the air just before dawn. The maple trees blush slowly, as if embarrassed to admit the season has changed. At the Okia, the rhythm shifts. The clients arrive wearing thicker robes, and the fires in the hearth are coaxed to life earlier. The girls switch out their linens for silks lined with cotton. Everyone walks a little faster between rooms, sleeves tucked in, hands hidden. You like this part of the year. It's dramatic in a quiet way, like the moment a dancer holds still before a leap. You find yourself assigned to a daimyo's cousin. Important, but not too important. The kind who expects flattery, but not reverence. He smells like incense and expensive vinegar, and laughs like he's trying to prove he owns the air around him. He calls you moonlight. You smile, pour tea, nod in all the right places. The trick isn't making them love you, it's making them feel clever. Backstage, someone asks if you'll see him again. Probably, you say, tugging your obi tight. His ego likes it here. She laughs, so does mine. It's a strange kind of power. The attention, you hate it, you need it. You hate that you need it. Some nights, you dream of becoming a nun, shaving your head, donning grey robes, disappearing into temple life, where no one calls you beautiful, and no one tries to buy your time by the hour. But you know yourself too well. You like hair ornaments, you like music, you like freedom, even when it's a performance. Still, it's a comforting fantasy. Quirky fact, some retired courtesans really did become Buddhist, nuns shifting from silk to silence, trading admirers for solitude. Historians still argue whether it was genuine spiritual longing or just the only exit that preserved a sliver of dignity. Either way, you imagine the peace must have been thick, like a blanket pressed against the noise. You wonder if you'd last a week. Your hands are more familiar with sake cups than sutras, and yet you still light a stick of incense sometimes, not for a god, just for the smoke, for the way it curls and dances and disappears. One evening, she brings you a scrap of paper folded, creased, sealed with a thumbprint in red ink. You recognize the mark. You smile. She's tried again. New kill, new mixture, new fire. You wonder if she's ever considered just buying a pot, but then that would ruin the entire point. You bring wine, the good kind this time, or at least the kind that doesn't smell like regret. She greets you with flour on her cheeks and a ribbon in her hair, a different one, pale green. You notice, but don't mention it. The pot is ... better, still lopsided, still her. She cradles it like it might breathe. You both drink too much. She tells you about her dreams, a small stall by the river, handmade pottery, a cat who sleeps on the counter, You nod along, but inside, you ache, because you've seen what happens to women with dreams and no protection. The city is full of ghosts who wanted something more. She knows it too, but saying it out loud would turn the dream brittle. So you say, "What will you call your shop?" She grins, "Cracked things." You laugh. Perfect. Outside, a wind picks up, rattling the eaves. Somewhere, a gate creaks. A bell tolls far off. You remember your mother's voice, once. A lullaby about the wind being a fox that whispers secrets into your ears while you sleep. You wonder what this one is saying now. You walk home slowly. There's a man loitering near the lanterns by the entrance. He looks familiar. Merchant safety. Seller. You can't place him. He asks your name. You give him your stage name, not your real one. Never your real one. He nods. "I've heard you're kind." "That's dangerous," you think. "Only on even days," you reply. He laughs. Leaves. You don't tell anyone about him. Not because he's threatening, because he isn't, and that's the scariest part. Kind men ask for more. Always. You sleep poorly. Dreams twist and fray like an old obi coming undone. You wake with your heart pounding and no memory of why morning tea helps. So does the warmth of the floorboards beneath your knees as you stretch. You see her again that night. She's kneading. Clay like it owes her an apology. You watch. "I want to try something different," she says. "Different how?" She shrugs. "A lid. Something with a lid." You raise an eyebrow. "Ambitious, reckless." She says, "Same thing." She smirks, and you fall a little more in love with her stubbornness. Not romantic love, exactly. Something messier. Something older. A loyalty made of shared pain and borrowed hope. She asks what you dream about. You lie. You say, "Lanterns that never burn out." She nods like that makes sense. But in truth, your dream's a stranger. Sometimes you dream you're a ghost, haunting your own house, watching yourself age, watching the seasons pass, watching your name fade like ink in the rain. Sometimes you dream of walking into the river and emerging somewhere else entirely. No ribbon, no name, just water and sky, and whatever comes next. But mostly, you don't dream at all. You just sleep like someone pretending not to exist. You're called back to the Okia early. Something about a last-minute patron. Important. Wants someone elegant, quiet, with eyes like twilight. That's apparently you now. You wonder if you should be flattered or alarmed. You bathe, dress, paint. The mirror shows you someone polished but unreal. She smiles when you ask her to. She tucks a comb into her hair and doesn't flinch. She's learned how to disappear behind routine. The client arrives in a black silk robe, his face powdered smooth, his voice slow and deliberate. He doesn't ask much, just tea, music, and silence, which, in your line of work, is a miracle. You play the shamisen, fingers nimble despite your thoughts being miles away, drifting, as they often do, to cracked pots and whispered lullabies. And the woman who calls herself a fire hazard with feet. The evening ends without fanfare. He leaves, a generous tip. You nod your thanks and tuck it away. Half goes to the house, of course. The other half might buy another ribbon, or more wine, or if you're feeling foolish, a lump of clay for her to ruin with creativity. Back in your room, you untie your obi. It falls like a sigh. You stretch, cat-like, slow and indulgent, savoring the quiet. And then it starts again. The list, the whispers, the waiting. Someone in the house missed her monthly signs. The women pretend not to notice, pretend not to listen, but ears perk like cats in the dark. Pregnancy in the yukaku is complicated. You're supposed to be unavailable, untouchable, a dream never a vessel, yet it happens, more often than anyone admits. Officially, courtesans are inspected, carefully, routinely, but clients slip money into the right hands, and sometimes inspections become suggestions, especially if the girl is pretty, especially if the patron is powerful. The girl is 17, newer than most, sweet voice, tiny wrists, terrible at poetry. She's not crying, not yet, but her lips are pressed so tight they could cut glass. You sit beside her, you don't touch her. That would make it real. Instead, you talk about weather, tissues, anything except the elephant that has set up camp in her belly, and future. Historians still argue whether pregnancies were ever truly tolerated in Edo-period pleasure districts, or whether it was all hush money and desperate improvisation. The records are big, which, you suppose, is fitting. Some girls tried herbs, others tried stairs, Some even escaped to temples, cutting their hair and their names at the same time. But most just vanished for a while, reappeared thinner, and no one asked questions. You whispered to her, "You have choices." She doesn't answer, just nods, the kind of nod that means nothing and everything. You leave her with a piece of persimmon candy, the soft kind. Sweetness is rare here. You hope she remembers it more than she remembers today. Back in your room, you light a candle and stare at it until your vision goes soft at the edges. You think about your own scare. 3 winters ago, it turned out to be nothing. But for a week, you bargained with every god, ghost, and ancestor you could name. You even prayed to the rat statue by the bridge. In return, you promised to be wiser. You weren't, but you were lucky. Quirky tidbit. In some parts of Edo, midwives would whisper to fetuses, asking them politely to wait until a better time. Whether it worked is anyone's guess, but you like the idea. You like thinking that someone, somewhere, asked life to become. Life actually listened. The next day, the girl is gone. The occasion says she went to stay with an aunt. Everyone nods. You all know what that means. You all pretend not to. Routine resumes. TI song, clients, who mistake attention for affection. You go through the motions like someone reenacting their own life, but part of you is still thinking about her, and how many stories never even get told. You see her again. 2 months later, briefly in the market. She looks hollow, like a house, with the windows boarded up. You don't wave. She doesn't look, but you slow your steps. Just enough. You hope she noticed. You hope she knows. At home, she's trying a new glaze. You smell the smoke before you open the door. "Don't panic," she says immediately. "It's only slightly on fire." You blink. The pot? No. The recipe notes. You laugh. "That's worse." She shrugs. "I can make more notes." You sit beside her. There's ash on her cheek. You brush it away without comment. "Do you think we'll ever get out?" she asks. You tilt your head. "Out where?" She waves vaguely. "Just out, somewhere without lists, or inspections, or schedules." You consider. "Maybe, if we become ghosts." She nods. "I'd haunt a tea shop." You grin. "I'd haunt a client. Whisper bad poetry into his ears all night." "That's cruel. That's justice." You both laugh. The pot is drying. It's better than the last one. Still, cracked dot still hers. Your shift ends late. The last patron insists on reciting his own poetry badly for 2 hours. You smile. You nod. You make the appropriate R sounds. But inside, your brain is quietly composing a haiku about strangling him with his own. Sash dot back in your room. Your feet throb. You soak them in a ceramic basin. The water clouds with dust and makeup and everything you've pretended to be today. It feels like shedding a skin. You wonder if snakes ever miss the old one. She's not home yet, probably out scrounging for better clay, or spying on Kiltang like their state secrets. You admire that about her. The way she makes failure look like rehearsal. The way she dreams with both hands. You nibble on leftover rice. It's cold, but you're too tired to care. Outside. Rain begins to fall soft, insistent, like fingers tapping on a paper wall. It's the kind of night that wraps around you, whispering stories. You forgot, you knew. You think about the first time you met her. You'd just been promoted. Higher rank, more elaborate hairpins, more elaborate lies. She spilled tea on a noble's robe. You expected tears. You got sarcasm. "Well," she said dryly, "he can always afford more robe." And you laughed, out loud. In public, the occasion glared at you for days, but you kept laughing, and, somehow, that's where it all began. Historians still argue whether Yunjo pleasure women were allowed such attachments, or whether the illusion of romance was strictly tonally. But you know this much. No one regulates the soul. Even in a brothel. She finally comes in, soaked and grinning, holding something wrapped in cloth. "Don't yell," she says. You raise an eyebrow. "It's a cat." You stare. "It followed me." "It always follows you." "It meowed twice." "That's a legal binding." You shake your head. The cat sneezes. She wipes its nose with the hem of her sleeve and hums a lullaby, so old it probably predates fire. You name it. Pickle. It refuses to answer to anything. It also refuses to leave. You don't mind. There's something about watching a small creature trust you without hesitation. You envy that. You go to bed. Pickle curls up on your stomach. She curls up beside you, and you both dream, fitfully, of freedom, not the kind with fireworks and banners. but the kind where you can sit quietly and exist without performance. Morning comes too soon. The bells ring. Your name's not called, which means you have the day off. You almost forget how to breathe. The sky is washed in early light, pale as old silk. The air smells like damp wood and distant tofu. You sneak out. The market is waking up, stalls unfolding like origami, vendors shouting with voices still full of dreams. You buy persimmons. One's bruised, one's perfect. That's life. You also buy ink, new, expensive, utterly impractical. But she's been sketching. Again, new pot designs, with swirls and fish and birds who look vaguely offended. You head home humming. Quirky fact: in some red light districts, women kept hidden sketchbooks, not for art or business but for coded messages, fragments of poems, little drawings that looked like nothing but meant everything. You've seen hers. It's full of wings. She's awake when you return, wiping clay from her arms, hair a mess. Pickle is chewing on a sandal. You toss her the ink. She catches it mid-air. Eyes go wide. "You're going to make me cry," she says. "Don't." You reply, "The cat will judge us." She laughs, the kind that starts in the belly, and for a moment, nothing else exists. Just this, just now. You spend the day talking nonsense, testing which rice ball fillings make you gag, doodling birds with too many legs. Outside, life thuds along, schedules, lists, expectations. Inside, you float. She tells you a new dream, opening a shop, not for pottery, for warmth, a place where people feel safe. She says, even if it's only for tea. You nod. It's the most dangerous dream she's ever had, and you love her for it. By sunset, the sky burns with orange and plum. You sit on the steps, sharing the last persimmon, the bruised one, of course. Pickle claws your sleeve and purrs like thunder. She leans her head against your shoulder, and you think, just for a heartbeat, that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow can wait. You wake to the scent of miso supreme. Miso, not the watered-down version served to clients. Your eyes open slowly, and for a second, you're not sure what day it is. But the absence of bells and the sleepy sprawl of Pickle on your legs confirm it's another day off. 2 in a row. A miracle. She's already up, humming tunelessly as she stirs breakfast. Her kimono is spattered with flour. There's clay under her fingernails again. You smile. You think maybe you were right to buy that ink. You eat in comfortable silence. The soup tastes of salt and home and something else you can't name. She doesn't push you to talk. That's another reason you stay. Later, you both go to the river. The walk is quiet. The world still smells like rain from 2 days ago. Ferns glisten. Leaves stick to your sandals. Pickle trots behind like a tiny mewing shadow. When you reach the riverbank, she pulls out a small pouch ink and brush. She says she wants to sketch the way water curves around stone. You sit beside her and do nothing at all. Doing nothing is underrated. Most of your life is spent pretending, smiling, bowing, sipping tea like it's a spiritual event. But here, you don't have to pretend. She sketches. You watch the sky. A heron lands nearby, tall, aloof, judgmental, like a noble in feathers. You tell her that. She snorts and adds the heron to her drawing, wearing a topknot and a scowl. Historians still argue whether leisure time for working courtesans ever truly existed, or if such moments were rare exceptions. Maybe you're living an exception. Maybe this is the anomaly. You hope it lasts. By mid-morning, she's got ink smudges on her cheek. You reach over and wipe it with your sleeve. She doesn't flinch. It feels intimate, simple, undeniably yours. She finishes the sketch. It's crooked and wild and utterly alive, like her. She hands it to you. "Hang it above the stove," she says. "That way the rice will boil better." You nod solemnly. "The heron will keep it disciplined." You both laugh. The afternoon is hot. You sit in the shade of a crooked pine and talk about everything and nothing. She confesses she used to steal books as a child. You admit you used to steal naps. Quirky tidbit. In some Yoshiwara houses, apprentices learned to copy poetry by candlelight while kneeling on tatami for hours. The handwriting had to be beautiful even. The heartbreak had to be elegant. You still write that way, even when writing grocery lists. Back home, you pass a tea house. A musician plucks a shamisen so gently it sounds like silk unraveling. The world feels like it's holding its breath, and for once, it's not waiting for your performance. It's just ... still. Later, you make dumplings. They fall apart. She eats them anyway. Pickle steals one. You consider your options. He's no longer our cat, she declares. He belongs to chaos. You raise a toast to chaos. It's wine against cheap, sharp, somehow perfect. The night settles in, full of crickets and warm air. She shows you another note, one she hasn't sent yet. It's to a former patron. She wrote it 3 times. The ink gets darker with each draft. She wants to ask for help money, a name, a favor, anything to speed up the dream. You know what this means. Asking for help feels like bowing so low you might never stand again. But the shop, it's real to her. It's not just a sketch anymore. You read the letter. You say, it's honest. She says, that's the problem. You say nothing. Sometimes silence is the strongest answer. Pickle bites your toe. You both yell, then laugh. The night is full of stars again. Too many to count. Too many to name. She leans her head against you. You whisper, I'll help. She whisper, I know. You sleep dreamless. Tomorrow might not be gentle, but tonight is, and that's enough. You wake to the sound of shoji screens sliding open faster than usual. There's an urgency in the air, something that makes your heartbeat stumble before you even sit up. She's not beside you. You call her name, don't answer. Then a voice from the street, fire. You're on your feet, stumbling into your robe, already cursing the paper-thin walls of Edo. Fires don't spread, they devour. Especially in the courtesan districts, where lacquered wood and silken dreams stack high and tight like kindling. With egos you find her outside, clutching a bundle wrapped in cloth. You think it's clothing until you spot the curve of a clay pot peeking out from one side. Of course she'd save that first. The smoke curls in from 3 streets over. Not close yet, but close enough. Neighbors run past. Some with children, some with trays of money or hairpins. One woman carries only a comb and a mirror. Priorities. Another drags her cat in a straw basket. It yowls like the world's ending. Maybe it is. You grab a few essentials papers, coins, the better of 2 sandals and shout for Pickle. No answer. You hope he's already decided to flee to higher moral ground. Historians still argue whether courtesan houses were better protected from fires due to their high revenue and cultural importance, or more vulnerable due to their tight quarters and poor upkeep. Today, it feels like everyone's equally flammable. You follow the crowd toward the river. She's gripping your hand so hard it hurts. You don't let go. Out at the riverbank, you wait and wait. The fire doesn't reach your street. Not this time. It stalls 2 blocks away, as if the gods reconsidered halfway through their tantrum. Still, the damage is visible. Shops singed, shutters blackened, rooftops sagging like broken backs. She unwraps her bundle. The pot survived, so did the sketch. She laughs. It's breathless, on the edge of panic. You laugh too. There's ash in her hair. Later, back home, everything smells like smoke, but it's still standing. That night, you sit outside and watch the horizon glow faintly orange. The city breathes again. You both exhale like you've been underwater for hours. The next day, people rebuild as if nothing happened. That's Ido for you. You help patch a neighbor's door. He offers you pickled plums in thanks. You accept one. It tastes like regret soaked in vinegar. You smile anyway. Life continues in the oddest ways. She spends the morning repacking her emergency bag. This time I'm saving the rice ladle, she declares. It's lucky. You nod. Solemnly, of course. The rice ladle is sacred. Quirky fact. Some women in Edo believed specific household items carried protective spirits. A cracked bowl, a well-used brush, a rice ladle that stirred too many late-night meals to count. You never believed in any of that. Until now. That night, she starts another pot. This one's taller, more ambitious. She calls it the Phoenix. You don't ask why, you already know. Pickle returns at midnight, covered in soot and arrogance. He meows once, as if to say, what fire? She lets him in without question. You wipe his paws and curse his 9 lives. He curls at her feet. You curl beside them both, and somewhere in the ashes of almost disaster, something fragile begins to take root. Not just love, but permanence. A house, a name, a life not borrowed from patrons or painted with other people's dreams. A future, maybe. You wake slowly this time, not to footsteps or flames, but to the whisper of rice water bubbling in the corner pot. Her silhouette moves quietly in the morning haze, steam curling around her arms like tame ghosts. The air smells of miso and ash, and something else warm and starchy. Comfort, maybe. or survival. She glances over her shoulder, hair still uncombed, and offers a sleepy smile. You've seen that smile after long nights, during clay disasters, even mid-argument. But today, it's simple. It means, we're still here. You sit up, stretch, and groan dramatically. She doesn't look impressed. You slept like a shogun. I dreamed I was a samurai, you mutter, with silk sheets. You kicked me in your sleep. Even warriors flail. Outside, the street is busy. Merchants set up stalls, and kids chase a stick through puddles like it's the most valuable thing in Edo. A dog barks at a passing rooster. The rooster barks back. Or maybe that's a child pretending to be one. It's market day. You both know the routine. But first, breakfast. She serves 2 bowls yours with extra scallions, hers with pickled radish. You eat in silence, broken only by the sound of pickle trying to murder a moth. Today, she's not working. No makeup, no wigs. Just her, plain and radiant in a teal house robe that smells faintly of clay and lavender. You wish more people saw her like this, but they never will. Historians still argue whether off-duty courtesans lived freer lives than most assume, or if the illusion of rest was simply part of the roll another costume behind closed doors. In your home, it feels real, or at least real enough. After breakfast, you walk together toward the edge of the district. There's a small patch of field there, wildflowers in rebellion, stubborn stalks of grass, pretending they're rice. She likes it because it smells like nowhere else in the city. You like it because she likes it. You bring the pot with you, the phoenix. It's dry now, fired and whole, no cracks. She sets it down in the weeds like a temple offering. Will you sell it? You ask. She shakes her head. It's not for anyone else. You don't press. Nearby, an old man sells charcoal sketches for a single copper. His drawings are wonky, but hopeful. You buy one, a fish with eyes too big for its body. She laughs. That's you, she says. Excuse me, I'm clearly a majestic carp. No, you're a startled guppy. You put the sketch in your sleeve anyway. Quirky detail. Edo had dozens of unofficial street artists, many of them former monks or failed actors who turned to ink when theater didn't pay. Some drew on scrapwood, others used rice paper stolen from shrines. Most never signed their names. They drew, got paid, moved on. Anonymous art for an anonymous city. You head to the market. She finds a new comb-carved bone with a cherry blossom handle. You find dried persimmons and argue over how many you can afford. Eventually, you compromise. One for her, one for you, one for Pickle. He won't eat it, but the gesture matters. Back home, she brushes your hair with the new comb. You pretend to hate it. She pretends to believe you. Then she starts sketching against something with petals and waves. Too abstract to name yet. Maybe I'll try painting next, she says. You raise an eyebrow. Are you bored of dirt and fire? Maybe I want color. You consider this. We could trade for pigments. Expensive, you nod, but worth it, because the truth is, you'd trade more than coins. You'd trade hours of sleep, slices of pride, half your blood supply if needed. Not because she's fragile, but because she's fearless, and fearless deserves backup. That night, over rice and leftover broth, she tells you about her childhood. Not the part written in customer scripts, the real one. A village near Sendai. Snow so deep it swallowed sandals. A mother who cried too quietly. A brother who vanished before winter ended. You don't interrupt, because sometimes love is listening. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's letting her story sit in the room without cleaning it up when she's done. She changes the subject. What's your favorite season? You blink. She laughs. It's a normal question, you think. Autumn, when everything pretends to die. Melancholy, she muses, but poetic. And you? Spring, she says. New things, pretending not to be scared. You smile. Pickle sneezes and ruins the moment. Later, under the lantern's glow, she sketches flowers with nervous petals. You sit beside her, thumb tracing the rim of the finished pot. You want to say something profound, something worthy of this. Peace. Instead, you yawn. She smirks. Samurai energy, shogun-level fatigue. You're a guppy, she says again. But her hand rests on yours as the lantern flickers low, and you think, maybe this is enough. No glory, no scrolls etched with your name. Just mornings with steam, evenings with ink, and someone beside you, who believes tomorrow's worth painting. You dream of snow that night, snow falling in slow motion over the tiled rooftops of Edo. blanketing everything in a hush so complete even the lanterns seem to hold their breath. When you wake, the world hasn't changed, but you carry that quiet with you, like a secret folded inside your robe. She's already awake, barefoot, hair loose, humming something old as she sprinkles water on the hearth to settle last night's ash. You watch her for a moment, then sit up, stretching like a reluctant scroll being unrolled for another day. Up already, she says, not turning, just making sure the world didn't collapse without me. Not yet. The pot sits on the shelf now, proud and lopsided. She's started decorating it tiny painted lines of red and gold that trace the cracks instead of hiding them. You're not sure what it's becoming, but it's hers. That's enough. After a quick breakfast of pickled greens and leftover rice, she wraps herself in her working layers crimson robe, gold sash, hair pinned with practiced speed. Today, she returns to the house. You hate watching her go, but you never say it. Instead, you hand her a paper charm you picked up last market day. Protection, you say, sheepishly. Probably for teeth or farming, but still. She smiles. For goodbees, you grin, and she's gone, swallowed by the waking city. You've got errands. She left you a list. Vinegar, thread, sweet beans if they're cheap. You tuck the list into your sleeve and step outside. The streets are full already. Couriers dash past with scrolls clutched in damp fists. A dog chases a wooden sandal with more energy than most shopkeepers. You walk slowly, letting the day unfold. Without urgency. First stop, the vinegar seller. He's in a foul mood, grumbling about taxes and ghosts. You nod sympathetically and overpay by 1 coin just to escape. Consider it a donation to Edo's collective peace of mind. Next, the thread merchant. She talks non-stop, voice like a flute with a broken reed. You smile, nod, agree that yes, plum thread is far superior to saffron for mending festival robes. She throws in a sample. You thank her with exaggerated reverence. She laughs. Historians still argue whether Edo's markets were truly egalitarian, or whether the illusion of friendliness masked deeply stratified classes beneath the surface. You suspect both are true. For every cheerful merchant, there's a widow barely scraping by. For every giddy child, a father drinking away his regrets. It's a city of balance, like a tightrope strung between smiles and survival. You duck into a side alley to check the sweet bean vendor. Luck's on your side, today's batch is fresh. You buy 2, tell yourself 1 is for her, and then eat both. Immediately, the shame fades faster than the taste. Back home, you air out the futons and feed Pickle a scrap of dried fish. He pretends to disdain you, then licks your thumb. Emotional blackmail, in feline form. You sweep. You patch the hole in your sandal. You test the edge of your old knife and consider sharpening it. Then don't. The day stretches, without her. The room feels too quiet, so you sketch. You're not good, but she told you once. Art isn't about talent, it's about attention. So you pay attention to the way light filters through paper screens. To the crooked smile in Pickle's tail when he's smug. To the flick of ash that never quite settles on the same spot twice. You draw her pot, and it looks like a turnip. You laugh, crumple it, start again. Quirky fact. Some Edo artists practiced ukiyo-e pictures of the floating world by copying shadows on walls or tracing puddles after rainstorms. The goal wasn't realism. It was emotion disguised as simplicity. You try to draw her eyes. Fail. Try again. Eventually, you nap. When she returns. Her cheeks are red from the cold, and her arms are full of scraps, broken hairpins, torn fabric, a cracked mirror. Repairs, she says, kicking off her sandals. She sees your sketches and smiles. Turnips are a bold medium. You make tea. She soaks her feet. Later, she lays out the scraps and begins her evening ritual: mending, gluing, restoring. You watch. Do you ever wish you did something else? You ask. She pauses. Like what? I don't know. Medicine, music. Not. You gesture vaguely, not pretending to love strangers. You flinch. She softens. Sorry, it's not you. I know, she thinks. Some days, yes, I wish I'd run further, learned something with tools or books, been someone else. And other days she meets your gaze. Other days, I remember, I survived. And survival, in this city, is art. The words linger. The kettle whistles. You drink in silence. Outside, the wind picks up. Lanterns flicker along the eaves. Somewhere, a neighbor sings off-key. and someone else throws a sandal in response. The city breathes around you, and inside, for a while, you both are still. You wake to the smell of rain. Not a downpour, just a polite drizzle. The kind that slicks rooftops and dapples silk sleeves, but rarely soaks them. She's still asleep, one arm over her head, the other draped across her side like a dropped ribbon. You let her rest. The rain can do the talking for now. You step outside, careful not to wake the cat. The streets are quiet in a way they rarely are. Even Edo has its moments of surrender. The air smells of earth and ash, and something faintly green, like moss remembering it used to be a riverbank. You don't have work today, not the kind with coin or quotas, but the neighbors need help reinforcing a roof beam, and you said yes last week, so now it's real. On the way over, you pass a group of children floating paper boats in a shallow gutter. One calls his boat Dragon Emperor of the West, and another retaliates with Mistress of 10,000 Carp. You pause to watch the battle. It ends with soggy laughter and a splashed kimono. You nod and keep walking. The beam is warped. It groans when you touch it, like it resents your audacity. You work slowly, side by side with men you've known for years and barely spoken to. There's a rhythm in it: lift, brace, hammer, joke, repeat. Someone brings salted plums. Someone else shares sake. Historians still argue whether communal labor in Edo was a form of mutual aid or thinly disguised hierarchy, one man leading, the others pretending not to notice. You suspect it depended on the day and the sake. You return home before sunset. She's out, still at the house, so you tidy. You light incense. You place the pot on a clean cloth and straighten the pillows like they're honored guests. You even brush Pickle's tail, which he accepts with deep offense and minor violence. She arrives not long after, her cheeks flushed, her voice hoarse. Rough night. You ask. Feathers and clowns, she replies, which is either a code or a critique of a client's taste. You prepare rice. She changes. You don't talk much, but the silence is familiar now, not empty. Later, she unrolls a parchment scroll. Tell me a story, she says, handing you a brush. I thought you were the storyteller. I want to hear yours tonight. You hesitate, then begin. You draw a mountain, then a bird perched on top. You name the bird Foolish. You give the mountain dreams. She raises an eyebrow. You continue anyway. As the tale unfolds, your lines become bolder, looser. The bird loses a feather. The mountain loses a shadow. They argue, they cry, they joke about moss. She adds a river, a teacup, a ghost. You pass the brush back and forth, wordless but not silent. Quirky fact: some Edo artists composed entire love poems through shared brushwork, passing the same scroll between them night after night, each stroke a confession or a dare. The finished scrolls weren't published. They were burned, too intimate for ink. You think about that as the river on your scroll winds past the bird and circles the ghost's feet. You don't want to burn this one. You want to keep it. Folds. And all dot when the drawing ends. Neither of you says much. She curls against your side. Her fingers find yours. They're stained with ink and something warm. I'm glad you're here, she murmurs. I'm glad I stayed. You whisper back. Outside, the rain picks up. It drums on the roof, like a drummer trying to remember a lullaby. The lantern flickers. You think about how close you came to running years ago, how easy it would have been to vanish downriver, change your name, start fresh in some fishing village, where no one knew your debts, but you didn't, and she didn't. And here you are, two figures in a room not meant for legends, just tea and scrolls and ink-stained fingers. Historians still argue whether love stories from the pleasure quarters were ever real, whether they were tragic fantasies sold to poets and sailors, or if, once in a while, something honest took root. You're not a historian, but this feels real enough. You kiss her temple and rise to close the shutters. The scroll sits on the floor, unfinished but whole. You'll finish it tomorrow. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll just keep passing it back and forth until the brush wears down and the paper becomes too soft to hold the ink. And that, somehow, will still be enough. You wake with the scent of ink still in your nose and the scroll creased beneath your arm. She's already gone. You find a note in her handwriting, more doodle than message, a quick sketch of Pickle the cat, smug as ever, sitting on top of a rice ball. The caption: tell him to get his own. You smile. It's just the start you need. Outside, the city is already moving. Carts rattle by, children squeal at fishmongers. and two old men argue about whose radishes are truly divine. The air is crisp, touched with smoke, and something vaguely sweet, maybe roasted chestnuts, maybe incense, maybe both. Today is market day. That means color, bustle, shouting, and the smell of 10 different kinds of pickled everything. You don't need much. Dried squid, fresh ink, maybe a lemon, if there's one that hasn't been snapped up already. But mostly, you go for the rhythm of it. Market day pulses through the neighborhood like a heartbeat, reminding everyone they're still alive, still bartering, still dreaming. You pass stalls of cloth indigo-dyed silks, rough spun linens, and a bolt of fabric so vibrant crimson it hurts to look at. A woman buys a single needle. A man tries to trade a poem for a jar of miso. He fails, but gets a smile. You're halfway through the row of stalls when you see her. Not your courtesan, but someone else, a young girl, maybe 16, hawking bundles of charcoal wrapped in straw. Her eyes are bright, her knuckles raw. You remember that hunger, the kind that has nothing to do with food. She waves you over. You wave back but keep walking. You don't need charcoal. You don't want to take something from someone who clearly needs the coin more than you do. Later, you'll regret that. You arrive at the inkstand and find your usual merchant, a short man with too long eyebrows and the voice of a surprised goose. He shows you a new blend, thick and dark, supposedly blessed by a wandering monk. You buy it anyway, mostly for the story. Quirky tidbit. In Edo period Japan, some ink makers would add tiny amounts of powdered jade or pearl to their mixtures for prestige. Whether it made the ink better is debatable. Whether it impressed clients. Always, you tuck the bottle into your sleeve and continue. You pass a monk playing a flute with no mouthpiece, and a cat that clearly doesn't belong to anyone but has claimed an entire stall as its domain. At the end of the row, there's a quiet booth with painted fans. They shimmer in the mountains, poems rendered in a single brushstroke. One catches your eye, a fan painted with a scene of a courtesan brushing her hair by lantern light. It's familiar, a little too familiar. You ask the vendor where it came from. He shrugs. Artist anonymous. Comes from the south. You nod, but you know. You can see her hand in the way the shadows fall, in the detail of the comb, in the way the lamp seems to exhale warmth. She's been painting again, not just pots. You buy the fan. Not to use, but to keep. When you return home, she's not there. But there's steam curling from the pot, and someone's tidied the shelf where you keep your brushes. One of your old poems is pinned to the door. With a dried lotus petal, historians still argue whether these tiny domestic rituals, notes, flowers, arranged chopsticks counted as affection or etiquette. But you know better. These gestures are the story beneath the story, the breath beneath the words. That evening, you write a poem, not a good one, but one that makes her laugh when she reads it aloud, with exaggerated drama. Then she pauses and says, "You're different lately." You look up. Better or worse? She shrugs. Just different, softer, like the ink's soaking in. You don't answer, not right away. You get up, find the fan, hand it to her. She stares at it for a moment, then at you. Is this a compliment or evidence? Both. She smiles, brushes her thumb along the paper's edge. The nose is wrong. I always liked your nose. You're biased. You're beautiful. It's not a line. Not tonight. She puts the fan down and kisses you. Later, you sit together in the doorway. The moon is a sliver, the sky a bowl of ink tipped slightly toward forever. She leans against your shoulder. Do you think they'll remember us? You think of the fan, the scroll, the crooked pot, the ink that glimmers just a little too brightly. No, you say softly, but I think we will, and that's enough. You wake before she does. Her hair fans across the mat like spilled ink, the ends curling gently where the breeze from the open screen door touches them. You watch her breathe, slow and steady, and marvel at how peaceful a face can look when it doesn't belong to a profession, when it's just a person, sleeping, dreaming, who knows what. You let her rest. You slip out quietly. The city is quieter at this hour, barely dawn. Soft grey light creeping over tiled roofs and lacquered eaves. Even the cicadas haven't started complaining yet. You stretch, your shoulders crack, your legs protest, your knees whisper curses in ancient dialects. But today isn't for hauling, or writing, or mending, or shopping. Today is for the bathhouse. Even you have limits, and the ink-stained sleeves and sore joints have reached theirs. You head to your favorite one, not the cheapest, not the fanciest, but the one with the grumpiest old woman at the front desk. and the best water temperature in the district. She grunts when she sees you. Finally remembered you have a body. You nod. It's been threatening to leave me. She barks a laugh and slides open the door. Steam welcomes you like an old friend. The wooden slats creak underfoot. You find a bucket, a stool, and begin the ritual. Wash first. Always wash first. To do otherwise is not just rude, it's scandalous. The soap is rough. The water is perfect. You ease into the tub and exhale like someone who's been holding their breath for a week. Round you a few other men soak in silence. One hums a melody with no clear tune. Another reads a scroll with wrinkled hands. No one talks. That's the rule. Not official, but sacred. Historians still argue whether these communal bathhouses were more about hygiene or hierarchy, whether the shared water blurred status lines or reinforced them by proximity. You don't care. Right now, it's about healing. You close your eyes and drift. You remember the first time she took you to a bathhouse late at night. Mostly empty, her hair tied up and her laughter echoing off the stone walls. She teased you for flinching at the heat, then admitted she had once fainted in a sulfur bath up north. You both laughed too loudly, got shushed by a monk, apologized through giggles. You sink lower into the water until your ears fill and the world goes quiet. The silence is velvet, thick, heavy. You let it hold you. A quirky tidbit. Some bathhouses in Edo, Japan included services like tooth blackening and ear cleaning, teeny luxuries rolled into the ritual. The idea was that cleanliness was not just physical, but performative. You weren't clean until you looked like someone else could love you. Eventually, you climb out, wrinkled, softened, human again. You dress slowly. Linen shirt, cotton robe, simple, light, clean. You tuck your hair back, adjust your sandals, and nod to the old woman on your way out. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't scowl either. That's practically affection. You return home to find the house still quiet. She's up, but sketching face bent over the page, charcoal smudging her cheek, eyes lost in the shape of a blossom. She's half finished. She doesn't hear you. You don't interrupt. Instead, you make tea. The water boils. The leaves steep. The smell curls into the air like memory. You hand her a cup, and she blinks like she's just returned from another world. How long have you been standing there? Long enough to know that flour has secrets. She snorts. It's a camellia. It only has regrets. You both sip. The warmth spreads through your fingers, your throat, your bones. Outside, the neighborhood stirs. A dog barks once. A vendor shouts the day's fish. Somewhere, a child screams with the enthusiasm only pickled plums can cause. She sets the drawing. Aside, you smell like cedar. I smelled like redemption. You smelled like you didn't use the shampoo. You grin. I forgot. She laughs. Tragic. The moment is soft, ordinary, perfect. You wish you could bottle it. You remember a story from the market that an apothecary once tried to distill happiness into a potion. All he managed was a paste that made people sneeze violently. But the intention, that part was sweet. She finishes her tea and says, "Let's go out tonight." You blink. Where does it matter? You shake your head. No, it doesn't. And that's the truth. It doesn't matter where, when the company's like this, when the story writes itself in footsteps and glances and little teacup pauses. You take her hand. You plan nothing. You go. Evening drapes itself lazily over the rooftops, curling around lanterns and settling into the cracks of the street like it belongs there. You walk beside her, your hands brushing now and then, accidental, on purpose. She's humming again, that same half-familiar tune she always pulls from nowhere, a lullaby from a past life, maybe, or just a melody that fits her mood tonight. Light, playful, restless. The city doesn't rush anymore. It exhales. You pass by the same market stalls from earlier, now packed up, shuttered, or transformed into food carts. Steam rises from skewered fish, bubbling miso, sweet rice cakes dipped in soy. Your stomach gives a curious lurch, half hunger, half habit. She notices. Want a dumpling? You nod. Always. The vendor recognizes her. He smiles wide. Missing 3 teeth, but none of the warmth. Back again. Mistress Potter. I break things just so I can return. He laughs and hands her 2 dumplings wrapped in lotus leaves. She hands him coins, exact and smooth. You each take one, and for a few minutes, the world shrinks to the sound of chewing and the taste of garlic and ginger, a quirky little tradition. In some districts, Potters and courtesans formed unofficial pacts with vendors: buy a certain number of meals or wares and get one free. Not a loyalty card exactly, more like a gesture, a wink from the economy saying, we see each other. You keep walking, no destination, just movement. A narrow alley pulls you in, not dark or dangerous, just quieter. Paper lanterns sway overhead, strings tied haphazardly between buildings. Someone's written haiku on the walls in charcoal. You read one aloud, cracked pot in the sun. Still it holds water enough for one evening's tea. She stops, stares at it, then smiles. That one's mine. You blink. Seriously? She nods. Wrote it when my kill exploded. You laugh. It's good. I might have cried. I did. After throwing a spoon. Very poetic. She elbows you gently. Better than hitting someone. The alley leads out onto a small bridge barely wider than your shoulders. Below, a canal glimmers in the dimming light. Coy surface briefly, vanish just as fast. You lean on the wooden railing. It creaks, but holds. You look at her. She's looking at the water. You ask, did you ever think it would be like this? She doesn't answer right away. Like what? This us, the walking, the dumplings, the bridges, the poems. She shrugs. I thought it might be worse. You chuckle, high praise. She nudges your foot with hers. I didn't think I'd survive long enough to get bored. That silences you, not painfully, just honestly. Because yes, this was never promised. Historians still argue whether the more successful courtesans in Edo were truly free once they bought out their contracts, or whether the world just changed the shape of their cages. Some say a well-placed patron meant safety. Others say even that was just a nicer-looking chain. She breathes deeply, pulls something from her sleeve. It's folded paper. You should read this, she says, handing it to you. It's a letter from her younger cousin, still training. You've heard of her before, barely 16. Smart, funny, already burdened. She writes about her lessons, about a misstep during fan dancing that made the teacher bark for 20 straight minutes, about a client who praised her writing but didn't tip, about the way the window glows when the sun sets, and how, for 5 minutes, it doesn't feel like prison. She's good. You say she's better than I was. Will she be okay? She'll learn, or break. The words hang in the air. You fold the letter, hand it back. Maybe she'll get out. You say she doesn't want out yet. She wants control. And does she have any? Another shrug, another silence. You walk again, steps slower now. A bell chimes in the distant temple hour. The scent of incense rides the wind. Someone's burning cedar. She wants to be like me, she says suddenly. That's not a bad thing. It's not a safe thing. You nod, because that's true. But also here you are, eating dumplings, quoting haiku, walking bridges lit by borrowed light. The streets begin to empty. Even the bars lose their customers. Candles flicker behind latticed windows. You pass a couple arguing, in whispers. A cat sleeping on a bucket. A monk with a cart full of herbs. The world feels like it's being tucked in. You reach her home. She turns at the threshold. Not asking, not inviting, just waiting. You follow inside. The light is soft and amber. The room smells like pine and ink and someone's idea of a warm memory. The floor creaks. The mat is slightly crooked. The teapot's already halfway warm. She lights a single candle and blows out the others. You sit. There is no grand moment, no confession, no orchestral swell. Just two people in a room. Still alive, still together, still choosing this every day. The candle's flame sways gently, casting long shadows that dance across the worn paper screens. You're both quiet now. Not from tension, but from something softer, shared space, unspoken thoughts, the kind of silence that doesn't need fixing. You pour tea, the bitter kind she likes, the kind that tastes like it's judging you just a little. She smiles over the rim of her cup, her eyes soft and amused. Outside, the world narrows, footsteps are scarce. A dog barks once, then thinks better of it. You sip your tea, let it settle behind your teeth. She speaks first. Did you ever think I'd be boring? You blink. Never. I mean it. People always assume courtesans are wildfire and drama and scandal. But I love boring. I crave it. You raise an eyebrow. Don't get me wrong, she continues. I like a little flair now and then. But give me a day when nothing explodes. No one cries. And the worst thing that happens is a burned rice ball. That's luxury. You nod. Sounds peaceful. It sounds survivable. The fire cracks softly. The kettle hisses. You add more water, just to hear it. Quirky tidbit. Some retired courtesans turned their taste for calm into business, opening quiet tea houses far from the pleasure districts. They hired no entertainers, no musicians, just tea, moonlight, and silence. The ultimate rebellion against the chaos they once performed. She sets her cup down. So, she says, stretching, how long until we're old and yelling at the neighbor's kid for stepping on our garden? You smirk. Depends how fast we get a garden. She grins. I'm serious. I want bitter melons and useless herbs, and a crooked fence we never fix. You can see it. Barely, but you can. Deal, you say. But only if I get to build a terrible bench out of scrap wood. Only if you let me paint frogs on it. Done. The candle shortens. The tea cools. The night deepens. You think about her past, what little she's told you, what more you've guessed. The names she's dropped carefully, like stones into a river. Some clients were kind, some were cruel. One was both, which might be worse. Historians still argue whether the ranking system among Edo courtesans truly offered social mobility, or merely the illusion of it. Sure, you could rise from lower to upper ranks, but you were always rising inside the same house. The ceiling was painted gold, but it was still a ceiling. She fiddles with a small box on the shelf, opens it. Inside are tiny folded paper cranes, 100, maybe more, all slightly off. None perfect. Started making these after my first lost client, she says softly. Not because I missed him, just because I didn't know what else to do. You pick one up, it's fragile but stubborn. Why so many? I kept trying to make one perfect. Did you? No, but I got used to folding. You place it back gently. In the quiet that follows, she leans against you. I don't miss him, she says again, or the others. I just miss the feeling that I knew what came next. You rest your hand on hers, and now, I guess, guessings. Brave. She smiles again, tired but real. The wind brushes the windows. She stands and moves to the chest near her bedroll, opens it, pulls something out. It's a robe, saffron yellow, embroidered with faded dragons. One of her old performance pieces I used to wear. This one I needed courage, she says. Thought it made me shine. Now it just smells like cedar and dust. She offers it to you. Try it. You raise an eyebrow. Seriously. Try it. You slip it on. It's absurd on you, too wide, too light, too ceremonial, but she claps anyway. Look at you, she says, mock formal, Sir Dragonslayer of the Tea District. You bow with theatrical flair. At your service. The laughter doesn't last long, but it's good while it does. Later, you help fold it again. She places it carefully back in the chest. You should keep it. You say, nah, she replies. Some things are better visited than owned. You think about that. Think about all the people she's been, all the lives she's touched, all the nights she's stitched together from nothing but skill and spark and sheer will. And how, somehow, you ended up here with her, drinking tea, talking gardens, pretending to slay dragons. The candle flickers one last time, then dims to a thin thread of smoke. The night says nothing, but it listens. You wake to the sound of rain, soft, insistent, like a polite guest who won't leave until you answer the door. The roof leaks in one corner. It always leaks in that corner. She's already up, placing a lacquer bowl beneath the drip, then drying her hands on the hem of her robe. Morning, she says, voice still coated in dreams. You grunt something that might be a greeting. She smiles anyway. Rain days are rare, not because it doesn't rain, but because the city slows when it does. Clients cancel. Gossip stalls. The perfume of the red light district is replaced by the scent of wet wood and old stories. You breathe it in. She boils water for rice, the kind of breakfast that says, we're saving money today. You don't mind. The rice is warm, and she lets you have the crust from the bottom of the pot, which is somehow better than anything you've eaten in weeks. Outside, puddles gather in the street. People rush past in straw coats and wooden getter, their feet splashing. In muddy syncopation, you count the umbrellas. Most are oil paper. A few are fabric frayed, noble, defiant. You sit together, watching the world mist over. I used to love rain, she says, before the mold, before the cold floors and soggy shoes. You raise your teacup in solemn agreement. To soggy shoes, she laughs, and to rice crusts. You clink cups like your royalty. Quirky tidbit. Some Edo period courtesans were rumored to have lucky umbrellas, gifts from clients, or symbols of status. Lose one, and you were said to lose your charm for a season. Historians still argue whether these superstitions came from within the pleasure houses, or were invented later by romantic poets with nothing better to do. You glanced at the worn parasol by the door. Bent rib, cracked handle. She never throws it away. I keep meaning to fix it, she says, but I kind of like it broken. You nod. It's yours. It should look like you. She snorts, throws a damp towel at your head. You deserve it. The rain continues. Soft now. Thoughtful. Don't you spend the day inside, reading old letters, sorting through lacquer boxes of hairpins and beads? She picks up each item like it holds a story, because it does. The silver comb from a client who tried too hard. The tortoiseshell pin from one who didn't try at all. A red silk ribbon, frayed at the edge, once used to tie off a song and a memory in the same breath. I want to forget some of these, she says, but not all. No, some made me, you understand. We're all stitched together from things we didn't choose. You help her sort. She tosses a cracked jade ring into a small burn basket. What about this? You ask, holding up a carved wooden token. She tilts her head. Oh, that's from the bathhouse boy. He gave it to me when I helped him lie about breaking a screen. Why'd you keep it? Because it was honest. He didn't want anything. Just thanked me. You hand it back. Keep that one. She does by late afternoon. The rain slows. The world smells our innerset. She lights incense, something floral and smoky, the kind that feels like it remembers a temple from another lifetime. You sit close, wrapped in blankets, watching smoke curl like slow thoughts. I had a sister, she says suddenly. You turn your head. She died young. Fever. I used to make up stories about where she went. Not heaven, exactly, just somewhere with no aches. You squeeze her hand. She doesn't cry. Doesn't need to. Her voice carries it all. You talk more. Not about courtesans or clients. Not about poverty or pain. Just things that float. What if? Jobs. Dream dinners. Silly inventions. She wants to open a shop someday. You'd hate retail. You say maybe, but I'd love designing the sign. You imagine it. A crooked sign. Hand-painted. Probably with frogs. It would be perfect. The rain finally stops. You step outside, into the gleam of wet cobblestones. The air is soft, forgiving. Children splash barefoot. A merchant pushes a cart full of skewered sweets, steam rising from the red glaze. She tugs your sleeve. Come on. You follow. You buy one skewer, split it, burn your tongue on the first bite. Worth it. She grins at you with sticky teeth and rain-tangled hair. Rain days are my favorite, she says. You nod. Mine too. Not because they're dramatic, not because anything explodes or changes or resolves, but because they stretch time, make space, let you both breathe. The kind of boring that keeps you sane, the kind of boring that matters. You walk home slowly, hand in hand, stepping carefully between puddles you could just as easily step through. That night, she sews a patch onto her parasol. It's ugly, loudly red, defiant. I want it to be obvious, she says. Broken, but fixed. That's the whole point. You smile. She gets it. So do you. You wake with her breath still on your shoulder and the faint smell of last night's incense lingering in the air. The parasol, with its absurdly red patch, leans against the doorframe like a proud, lopsided sentinel. It's another quiet morning. Too quiet, almost. You're used to clamor, the calls of merchants, the rustle of clients coming and going, the occasional drunk tripping over their own bad decisions. But today, stillness. She notices too. Maybe there's a procession, she mutters, stretching, her robe slipping slightly off one shoulder before she pulls it back with a yawn. Or a festival. You both know there's no festival. Stepping outside confirms it. A cluster of people stand near the well, whispering. The kind of whispers that carry more weight than volume. A man in city robes, official stiff. A scroll. Evictions. New tax assessments. Names scratched onto old parchment. Your name isn't there. Hers isn't either. But someone you know, an old friend who once taught you to tie knots in silk cords, is being forced out. Her house is too close to a planned expansion. For the public good, they say. No one argues. Not out loud. But resentment simmers like old tea. You walk home slowly, hearts heavier than your footsteps. She doesn't speak until you're back inside. We're next. Someday. You nod. But not today. She exhales. There's a tension that wraps itself around everything now, subtle but persistent. like a string pulled just slightly too tight. You clean. She sorts her pottery again. You both pretend it's a normal day. Midway through lunch, radish, leftover rice, and a stubborn umeboshi here. A knock. Not a client knock, not a friend knock. That's slow, deliberate. No one wants this. Knock. You exchange a glance. She answers, it's an apprentice from the outer quarter. Small, nervous, sweating. He hands over a folded cloth. Inside is a small coin and a note. I'm late, I know. She's gone. The woman you once worked beside. The not-teacher. You sit down hard. She was only 30. She whispers. You nod. Too young for forgetting. There won't be a funeral. Not a real one. The city doesn't make space for those who didn't die important. A local priest might mumble a blessing. Maybe. You light incense anyway. You hold a bowl of salt. Near the door. Protection. Remembrance. Gesture. Then she does something unexpected. She takes one of her small pots and finished, glazed in blue and gently carves a name into the base. Not perfect, not even symmetrical, but there it is. A name she refuses to forget. Quirky tidbit. Some women in Edo, Japan made remembrance charms out of hair, clay, or even pressed flowers, hiding them in floorboards or burying them near the river. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual ritual or just a way to carry grief in secret. You don't bury the pot. You place it on the shelf, beside the patched parasol and the burnt comb. She dusts around it with reverence. She hated umeboshi, she says suddenly. You both laugh. Laughter and mourning don't cancel each other out. They tangle. They make room for one another. Later, the district begins to stir again. Merchants return. Performers rehearse under eaves. A shamisen echoes from an alley. She suggests walking. Let's just go somewhere we don't usually go. You pick a path along the canal further than you normally wander. A small bridge hums with life. A woman selling rice bowls. A boy offering paper lanterns for a coin. You buy one, red, like the parasol. She carries it as the sky dims. A prayer lantern. She calls it. You write a name on it. Let it go. It floats. The water accepts. There's comfort in rituals. Even the unofficial ones. Do you think they float forever? She asks. No, you say, but maybe just long enough. The moon rises, a pale coin in a velvet sky. You head back, slower this time. No one waits for you, but everything still feels like it's holding its breath. That night, sleep comes late. You lie side by side, not touching, just aware of the space you share. She speaks in the dark. Will anyone remember us? You close your eyes. I think we'll have to make sure they do. Historians still argue whether the courtesans of Edo left behind legacy or just shadows. Official records barely whisper their names. But here, in this quiet room, there's pottery and parasols and stories not yet lost. And as long as someone remembers, really remembers, then no one's ever fully gone. You wake with the sun already pouring through the shutters, lighting her face in soft gold. She's still asleep, hair spread across the pillow like ink in water. One hand curled near her chin. You don't move. You just watch. You think, not for the first time, that this isn't the life you expected, but maybe it's the one you needed. Eventually, she stirs, blinking against the brightness. Is it late? She murmurs. You nod, but nothing's on fire. She grins. Then it can't be that bad. You share breakfast, leftover dumplings from the street vendor, and barley tea that's gone, slightly bitter. She makes a face, but drinks it anyway. Then comes the knock. A light, polite tap. You both freeze. No clients today. No deliveries expected. And after the eviction news and that folded cloth from the apprentice, every unexpected knock carries weight. She opens the door carefully. It's a girlie, maybe 13. Nervous eyes, dusty sandals, hands clutching a cloth-wrapped bundle. I was told to come here, she says, barely audible. There's a pause. You and she exchange a look. By who? She asks. The girl hesitates. My aunt worked here before, she said. You help. You open the door wider. Turns out, the bundle is everything the girl owns. A change of clothes, a comb, a dried persimmon. Turns out, she's run away from a cousin who made too many comments and a town that made too few. Turns out, you're not ready for this. Neither is she, but you let her in. You give her water, a corner to sit in, a blanket that smells faintly of sandalwood and starch. She doesn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she stares at the pottery shelf. Did you make those? She nods. All of them. They're kind of wobbly. You laugh. That's the style. And just like that, the girl relaxes a hair's width. Quirky fact. In Edo, Japan, courtesan houses often had unwritten traditions of mentoring younger girls, not officially, not always kindly, but enough that a few places became semi-safe havens for those who had nowhere else to go. Historians still argue whether this was compassion or pragmatism. More hands meant more chores, more future profits. But the girls still remember who gave them the first warm meal that mattered. She lets the girl sit by the kill that afternoon, not too close, just close enough to watch. She's got the hands for it. She murmurs to you, steady, careful. You nod, and quiet. She won't stay quiet long. You both know this. By evening, the girls asked 22 questions, broken one bowl, and apologized 19 times. She's still here. You eat together, with sweet pickled plums and a strange vegetable you don't recognize. She's got you experimenting again. You whisper, I had to impress someone. She shoots back. Later, the girl dozes in a corner. You sit outside. She joins you, pulling her robe tighter against the night breeze. Did you ever want children? She asks suddenly. It's a question that hangs, unexpectedly heavy. You think, I used to think I couldn't. Not that I couldn't physically, just not allowed, not meant to, like the world had already decided I wasn't the type. She nods slowly. I get that. There's silence then, but maybe that girl's here for a reason. You both look back at the dim room and the shadow curled beneath a blanket. She's not ours. You say she's not ours either. She replies, the stars come out, no constellations you can name, just dots and the inky space between them. You think she'll stay. I think we'll let her. It's not an answer, not exactly, but it's enough. Back inside, the girl stirs, murmurs something in sleep. You cover her better with the blanket. She sighs and goes still again. Your hands smell faintly of clay and sesame oil. The room smells like a future you didn't plan. And outside, somewhere just beyond your reach, the city hums. For now, though, it feels far away. Just you, her, and a girl with a wobbly bowl and questions. Tomorrow, maybe she'll throw her first pot. Tomorrow, maybe she'll ask why your parasol has a red patch. Tomorrow, maybe she'll stay. But tonight, you rest. The next morning, the girl wakes up before either of you. She's sitting in the courtyard, holding a lump of dry clay like it's a secret. Her feet are tucked beneath her, and her brow furrows with concentration. She doesn't notice you watching. She's trying to shape something. Maybe a cup, maybe a turtle. Hard to tell at this point. You nudge her gently. That's yesterday's clay. Too dry. Try this instead. You offer a fresher ball from the pot on the shelf. She takes it with a soft thank you and tries again. She doesn't get far. Thumb too deep, wall too thin, shape collapses. She sighs. Good, you say. Now do it 20 more times. She laughs, surprised. That many, maybe 30. You remember how it felt, your own first attempts, how your fingers didn't listen, how the clay had a mind of its own, how the teacher didn't so much instruct as smirk. Now you're the teacher, sort of, accidentally. She watches closely, mimics your motions, picks up on your pacing. She's got your stubbornness. She teases from across the room, and you're a habit of talking to clay like it's going to answer. You shoot back. The girl grins at both of you, a rare, unguarded smile. It makes her look like a child again, instead of someone fleeing a world that didn't want her. That afternoon, you take her with you to the kill-yard. It's a long walk, dusty and uneven. She stumbles more than once, but doesn't complain. At one point, she stops to stare at a row of vendors selling hair ornaments, tortoiseshell combs, lacquered pins, tiny mirrors. Do you miss it? She asks, softly. Don't you know what she means? You pause. Sometimes, she admits, but I don't miss being someone I wasn't allowed to be. The girl doesn't fully understand, but she nods anyway. The killmaster greets you both. He's missing 2 teeth, 1 eyebrow, and most of his patience, but he lets the girl sit near the shaded side, where the smell of charcoal and smoke isn't too harsh. Just don't touch anything, he mutters. Quirky detail. In some Edo kill towns, apprentices, especially girls, were considered bad luck. Near active firings. Too emotional, they said. Too distracting. Yet, oddly, many of the most prized glazers came from women-run side workshops that quietly outperformed the official masters. Historians still argue whether these were exceptions or whether the record simply buried inconvenient truths. The kill roars to life. The girl jumps at first, then leans forward, fascinated. She reminds me of someone. He says, "Don't say it," you reply. "I didn't say anything." She reminds me of someone too, she murmurs. Back home, the evening's gentle. You let the girl carry a few finished pots. She's proud, doesn't drop a single one. Dinner's rice with mushroom sauce, rich and earthy, a luxury. Again, the girl eats like she's afraid it might disappear. You all talk about pots, about clay, about the old woman next door who thinks the moon is spying on her. You tell the girl the story of the moon god, Tsukuyomi, and how he got banned from the heavens for killing a food goddess. Her eyes go wide. Why would anyone kill someone who makes food? Exactly, you nod. Even the gods make terrible choices. That night, the girl doesn't want to sleep in the corner anymore. She asks to sleep near the fire, closer to you both. You agree. You find yourself watching her as she drifts off, arms loose, breathing even. You don't know what her past holds, but you start to imagine her future. In a few years, maybe she'll sell her first vase. In a decade, maybe she'll teach someone else. Maybe she'll choose to leave or stay. You'll let her decide. No contracts, no clients, no debts, just clay and fire and the space to shape herself. You lie down beside the hearth, the warmth soft against your skin. She rests her head on your shoulder. The girl snores softly, enough to be endearing. She chuckles. That's your fault, mine. You brought her in. You opened the door. You let her have your favorite blanket. She needed it. She needs more than that. You nod. We'll give it. Outside, the wind picks up. A quiet rustling. You listen to the sounds of the night. Then you whisper. You think that Killmaster would teach her firing eventually. And she already knows how to hold something gently. You smile. In the end, that might be enough. You all fall asleep like that together, tangled in warmth and tomorrow. No bells, no footsteps, no clients waiting outside, just the hum of possibility. Morning doesn't so much arrive as unfold slowly, like rice paper unrolling beneath your feet. The girl's already awake again, kneeling near the window, sketching lines into a scrap of wood with a piece of charcoal. She looks up, sleepy but focused. You're up early, you murmur, stretching. She shrugs. Couldn't sleep. My brain kept drawing. You and her exchange a glance, both recognizing the familiar affliction. When your mind races faster than the body it's trapped in. You make breakfast. Just porridge with chopped greens and a few shavings of dried plum. It's not fancy, but it's hot. She eats slowly, carefully, savoring every bite, like it's a lesson in patience. After breakfast, she returns to the clay. Her fingers are steadier now, the shapes more intentional. Not quite graceful, not yet, but there's the spark of it. The beginnings. She keeps talking as she works. Small things. Questions. The way she speaks, like she's catching up on years of not being allowed. 2. You remember how long it took for your own voice to return. Not your speaking voice, your true one. The one that says what it wants without flinching. She still hesitates sometimes. Still checks your face when she says something too bold. But you only nod. Only listen, and that's enough for her to keep going. The killyard is quiet when you arrive. Too early for the workers, perfect for teaching. Today, it's your turn to instruct her. You walk her through the basic shapes, how the clay should feel, what thickness holds up, how to avoid air bubbles that might ruin a piece mid-firing. You show her how to score and slip tiny techniques that make all the difference. She listens, not just hears, listens, as if the clay is whispering secrets she's finally allowed to hear. You hand her a small bowl you made years ago. Make something that feels like this, you say. She holds it like it's a relic, nods, and gets to work. Midday brings heat, flies, and the faint smell of something burning down the road. A neighbor pokes her head in to complain about the chimney smoke. You smile, bow slightly, and close the door behind her. She's nosy. The girl whispers. She's also the one who sneaks us eggs when we're low. Oh, the girl says. Then, she's only slightly nosy. In the afternoon, your partner comes home early from the market. She's brought a basket of glassesum in tiny wooden cups, some in little fabric-wrapped pouches, reds, ochres, the rare speck of cobalt blue. You all crowd around the basket, like it's treasure, because in a way, it is. Pick one. She tells the girl. She reaches out and chooses a soft, greener, quiet, riverbed color. That's a good one, you say. Reliable, gentle. She holds it tight in her palm like it might fly away. You spend the evening brushing glaze onto the day's work. The girl gets impatient and tries to layer too thick. You gently stop her hand. One sweep. Let the clay breathe, like it's alive. It is, you say, sort of. Quirky tidbit. Some old potters in Japan claimed clay had memories that it remembered how you treated it and fired accordingly. Angry hands made angry pots, they believed. Calm hands made calm ones. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual, metaphor, or just poetic superstition passed down through centuries. You think of all the pots you broke in frustration early on. They did seem to crack more than the others. Maybe there's something to it. After dinner, you all sit outside. The breeze is warm, but it carries a promise of rain. The girl leans against your side, her eyes drifting skyward. Do you think I'll be good at this? She asks. You take a breath. You already are. Your partner says before you can reply. The girl blushes, hides her face. Will I get to sell them? Eventually. Will people like them? Some will, some won't. That's scary. It is, you admit, but you still do it. You nod. You remember the first time someone picked up a cup you made and paid for it. You remember how your hands shook not because of nerves, but because something you shaped mattered to someone else, even if just for tea. Later, you tuck her in. Her tiny corner, now slightly less tiny. She has her own blanket now, a pillow, a spot for her drawings beside the mat. You walk outside again, watching the clouds gather. She joins you without a word. She always finds you, somehow. You both listen to the frogs, the wind in the trees, the soft thud of shoes in the alley. It's quiet, it's whole. Tomorrow, she'll start shaping lids for her bowls. Soon she'll ask if she can take them to the market, and when she does, you'll go with her. You'll stand behind, watching her. Talk awkward, unsure, radiant. You'll know this isn't the end of her story. It's just the part where she finally starts to write it herself. You wake up to the soft pattering of rain, gentle like fingertips on old paper. It's not much, just a spring drizzle. But in a world where dust clings to everything, even a little rain feels like grace. The girl's already sitting up. She's watching the rain through the open window, chin resting on her knees, hair a small storm cloud of its own. You like rain? You ask. I like the smell, she murmurs. You do too. It smells like wet earth, like promises, like fields. That might survive another week. You let her skip kill work this morning. Clay doesn't fire well in humidity anyway. Instead, the three of you sit around the low table and sort through dried herbs and broken glaze samples, pieces that flaked, cracked, or bloomed strangely in the fire. Every fragment has a story. This one bubbled because I glazed it too thick. You explain. This one split because the lid didn't sit right. The girl's eyes widen. So, pots can fail even when you try really hard. You nod. Most do. The good ones are just better at hiding it. She picks up a jagged blue shard and runs her finger along the edge, gently, reverently, like it's a secret. You tell her about a famous Kyoto kill that buried all its cracked pots in a specific field. Decades later, farmers turned that field into a tea garden. They still dig up broken bowls, sometimes half-beautiful ghosts of what could have been. Historians still argue whether the burying was ceremonial or just clever waste disposal. You chuckle. Either way, it gave the pieces peace. In the afternoon, the rain lightens, and the girl suggests you go walking. So you do. You show her the moss garden behind the shrine, the tiny bridge no one uses, the old cherry tree that hasn't bloomed in 3 years but still refuses to fall. Along the path, you pick up a snail, shell-white, spiraled, empty. You know you muse. Snail shells were once used as measuring cups in old apothecaries, for potions, mostly. She nods, fascinated. I'd use them to scoop paint. You tuck it in her palm. When you get back, the kill is dry enough. You teach her how to stack a shelf, properly weight-balanced pieces, spaced, not too close to the flame path. She concentrates hard, tongue poking from the corner of her mouth. Your partner catches your eye and smirks. She's you. She mouths silently. Later, while the kill cools, you take her into the old storeroom. You've kept your mistakes, here are years of them, unglazed, overfired, undercut, collapsed. You watch her walk among them, trailing her fingers across jagged rims and warped bases. Then she stops in front of a lopsided tea bowl. This one's weird. You raise an eyebrow. Weird good, or weird weird? Weird alive. You blink. You remember the day you made it. You were angry, furious. Actually something about a delayed shipment and a dishonest buyer. You'd thrown the clay harder than usual, shaped it with raw, ugly energy, fired it too soon, glazed it out of spite. And yet, here it was, still here, still holding attention. Can I keep it? She asks. You smile. It's yours. She carries it out like it's a relic. Dinner is sweet rice tonight. A neighbor had a celebration and shared leftovers. There's even a bit of miso. You must have been a saint in a past life, you say, scooping it into bowls. She grins. Or a sneaky one. You eat by candlelight. The kills after heat warming the room. She asks questions about your first big sale. Your worst client. The time you dropped 100 bowls off a cart on the road to town. You answer them all. Honestly, even the embarrassing ones. You don't realize how much. You're smiling until your cheeks hurt. After dishes, she brings you something. Her first pot with a lid. It's not perfect, it's better. It has presence weight, balance, intention. You hold it up to the light. Nod once. You've got it. You say. She doesn't squeal or clap. She just exhales. Deep, quiet, relieved. That night, as she sleeps curled up with a weird lopsided bowl, you sit outside again. The air thick with late spring bloom. The moon's low and fat, shining just enough to silhouette the rooftops. You think of all the things you never planned. This house, this kill, this partner, this girl with dust in her fingernails and fire in her veins. None of it was in the blueprint. All of it matters. You remember something your teacher once told you. We don't shape clay. We give it space to become. And in that moment, you realize that's what you've been doing all along. The next morning arrives with a sharp breeze and the scent of pine smoke drifting in from someone else's breakfast. You stretch, slow and deliberate, muscles still remembering yesterday's work. The girl's already up, sitting cross-legged on the porch, sketching something in the dust with a stick. She looks up. I dreamed of fire, she says. You pause. Good fire or bad fire? She shrugs. Both. You know that feeling. Fire can warm or destroy. Same goes for love or ambition. You start the day with repairs. The roof tiles over the kill shed have slipped again. It's fiddly, thankless work, balancing precariously on a ladder that sways like it has opinions. Your partner passes up the tiles one by one. The girl hums off-key while sweeping the yard. The hum turns into a song, something from her village. You don't recognize the words, but the tune lingers. Inside, she's working on a tea bowl. This time, she's gone smaller, more careful, not timid, just thoughtful. Why are tea bowls so important? She asks. You rinse your hands. Because everything passes through them. Hospitality, philosophy, weather, mood. It's like you don't drink tea from the bowl. You drink it with the bowl. She scrunches her face. That sounds like something you made up. You smirk. Probably did, but it still works. Mainstream fact. In Japanese tea ceremonies, every element matters. Bowl, water, angle, silence. A host can spend hours preparing a moment that lasts 5 minutes. It's called wabi-sabi, an appreciation for the imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. She holds up her bowl. Like this. You nod. Exactly like that. Later, you take a walk into the town market. The girl gasps at everything back of pickled daikon, vendors shouting prices, old men playing go with stones worn smooth as river pebbles. She lingers at a stall selling lacquered combs, holds one up. It's too expensive. She doesn't ask. You buy her sesame balls instead, still warm, crisp outside, molten sweet inside. She bites in and makes a noise like she's discovered enlightenment in pastry form. You spend the afternoon glazing. She watches as you layer minerals and powders over each piece, like you're dressing them for a ceremony. She asks what each one does. This one makes green. This one reacts to ash. This one, you pause. It's unpredictable. Might go blue, might go brown. Depends on the fire. She grins. So, it's exciting. You laugh. It's chaos, wrapped in hope. Later, while the glaze dries, you show her how to write her name in kana on the base of her bowl. She holds the brush like it might break, then scrawls a shaky, determined signature. A history carved in wet earth. Quirky tidbit. Some potters in Edo period Japan used secret symbols or personal haikus instead of names. One even wrote complaint-steiny, angry verses etched under the glaze like spiteful fortune cookies. You've done that, too, once. Okay, maybe 3 times. As the sun dips, clouds roll in. It smells like rain again, but this time, heavier. The kind that rattles rooftops and floods ditches. You prep the kiln just in case, seal the doors, cover the vents, tuck the wood beneath the overhang. The girl helps, hands moving fast, eyes serious. I like this, she says suddenly, wiping her forehead. Even the dirt, even the work. You nod. It grows on you, like moss, or regret. She snorts. That night, thunder rolls, like a lazy drumbeat. The three of you eat fish, stew by lamplight. The girl curled on the floor with a half-finished cup in her lap. Your partner asks if you've heard from the capital lately. You shake your head. No word, which means no tax collector. Yet, historians still argue whether rural potters were regularly taxed or mostly ignored. You muse aloud, half-joking. Depends on how far the official's horse was willing to go. But everyone knows eventually. Someone always shows up with a scroll and a pouch and a smile that doesn't reach their eyes. Still, for tonight, it's just you. Just the crackle of rain, the glow of coals, and the soft exhale of a girl who's found something to believe in. You watch her sleep, limbs splayed, mouth open. She snores like a tiny bear cub. You grin. Outside, the storm begins in earnest sheets of rain slamming, down wind clawing at shutters, thunder shaking loose the past from the eaves. But inside is firelight and tea steam, and the warm thump of contentment in your ribs. And in that flickering, fragile peace, you realize something. This life you've built half chance, half choices and small. It's vast, because even in the quiet corners of the world, where no maps bother to go, people still change each other. They still shape clay into cups. They still dream under stormy skies. And they still, somehow, find family. The rain hasn't stopped by morning, but it's softened now, a steady, whispering drizzle that beads on every surface and turns paths into mud soup. The kind of weather that seeps into your bones if you let it. Still, you have work. Always, there's work. The kiln needs to be fired. You've been glazing all week, building up the inventory. And the fire can't wait for the skies to clear. Rain or not, pots need to harden. You all get moving. Cloaks pulled tight, sandals left behind in favor of bare feet for traction. The girl slips once in the yard and laughs like it's a challenge. In the kill shed, everything smells of damp ash and anticipation. Your partner stacks the firewood while you prep the flue, murmuring under your breath like a priest at a temple altar. Lighting the fire feels like summoning a reluctant spirit, layers of kindling, bits of pine resin, and breath held just a second too long. But it catches, it always does. The girl stares into the growing blaze like it's a living thing. It's hungry, she says. You nod. Always. Fact of the day. Traditional anagama kilns like yours could burn for days, reaching over 1,300 degrees Celsius. Temperatures high enough to make earth melt and minerals fuse into unpredictable glazes that shimmer like accidental rainbows. Quirky tidbit. Some ancient Japanese potters treated the kiln like a deity. They'd offer sake or chant protective verses, not because the fire listened necessarily, but because failure burned in more ways than one. By mid-morning, the heat is rising. The shed's soaked walls steam in waves. You take turns feeding the flame, adjusting the air, checking the draft. The kiln becomes its own weather system, a roaring, glowing heart in a spine of brick. The girl keeps notes, sketching the flame, tracking when the soot darkens or the ash shifts tone. She's meticulous, fascinated. You wonder if this will be the thing she carries into adulthood, not the pots, but the fire. Later, you gather around rice bowls and pickled ginger, eating in silence as the rain falls louder than your thoughts. You lean against the shed, neck warm from the kiln, spine complaining with every breath. She asks, what happens if it fails? You answer too quickly. We try again. She frowns, but what if everything cracks? He shrugged. Then we learn what not to do next time. It's a half-truth. Sometimes, all you learn is that you can fail again. The hours stretch. Firing is both urgent and eternal. You rotate shifts, sip tea from chipped cups, and nap when you can. The girl never stops moving, checking her notebook, peeking through kill holes, adjusting wood placement like a tiny general. She's covered in soot by evening, and smiling. The rain finally breaks grey, clouds peeling back to reveal a cracked eggshell of sunset. The last light hits the pots inside the kiln just right, and you swear you see one glow gold before vanishing back into shadow. Magic. The girl whispers. Your partner chuckles. Or chemistry. Historians still argue whether early Japanese glazes were developed by deliberate experimentation or happy accident. You add, I say it's both. Curiosity lit the spark. Failure fanned the flame. That night, as the kill burns into the dark, you sit together by the edge of the shed, eating miso soup from wooden bowls. She turns to you. What happens after the pots are done? You smile. We open the kill, we pray. We sort the survivors from the shattered. And then we sell them, trade them, use them, or smash them. Depends. She frowns again. But I like them now. You nod. That's the trap. You love them too early. Before the fire has had its say. She sighs, leans against your shoulder, and closes her eyes. The fire crackles behind you, deep and rhythmic like a breath. Somewhere down the path, frogs are croaking again. A dog barks once, then decides against it. You listen to the night. You think about the kill's belly, full of fragile futures. You think about all the pieces you've lost to the heat over the years. The misfired glazes, the explosions, the perfect shapes that came out warped or collapsed. And you think about the ones that made it. Accidental masterpieces, born of chaos and patience and timing. People are like that too. You glance down at the girl soot-smudged, tea-warmed, dreaming dreams she hasn't named yet. She break one day, but she fire again. And if the world's kind or just indifferent, she'd come out stronger, glazed, hardened, beautiful in the way only something weathered by flame can be. You stay until the stars emerge, kill still rumbling behind you. Then you douse the lamps and turn in. The night heavy with promise and smoke. Tomorrow, you open the door, and see what's survived. You wake to silence, not the eerie, absolute kind that warns of something amiss, but the thick, velvety stillness that follows a storm. The kill has gone cold. The rain is long gone. The air smells of wet earth, charcoal, and that faint mineral tang that only comes after clay has changed forever. Today is reveal day, and you're nervous. You always are. It doesn't matter how many firings you've seen. That moment when the door comes down and the mystery inside is made visible, that moment never loses its power. You find the girl already outside, wrapped in a shawl, her fingers tapping impatient rhythms against her notebook. She's slept, but only barely. You know the signs: damp hair, smudged ink across her cheek, eyes a little too wide, hopeful, terrified. Together, you approach the kill. Brick by brick, you dismantled the wall. Inside, stillness, rows of vessels, bottles, bowls, cups, jars, nestled in ash and soot like sleeping children. The girl gasps. They single quotes read ... beautiful. Some are a few gleam with the iridescent shimmer of ash glaze and oxidized minerals, like river stones, kissed by sunlight. Others are dulled, scorched, cracked straight through the base. You pull one out, bottle-shaped, deep russet tones, with specks of blue crawling over its shoulder like algae. You pass it to her wordlessly. She holds it like something sacred. Fact of the day. Ancient Japanese kilns, especially Noborigama climbing kilns, were known for their unpredictable beauty. Potters learned to place each piece strategically, knowing that fire flow, oxygen pockets, and even stray twigs in the woodpile could create wildly different results. Quirky tidbit: some potters intentionally cracked their pots slightly before firing, filling the fissures with gold lacquer after. This technique, called kintsugi, turned damage into decoration, as if to say, yes, I broke, but look how I healed. The girl finds one of hers. The form is clean, the lip perfect, but the glaze has run wild, pooling into the base and sealing it shut like a clamshell. She stares at it, then shrugs. Maybe it's a sculpture now. You laugh. That's the spirit. Hours pass in sorting. You separate the keepers from the near misses and the total disasters. Your partner finds a tea ball with a warped rim and holds it up like a medal. Call it intentional asymmetry. He says, sell it to a monk. Historians still argue, you say absently, brushing soot from a cup's rim, whether tea masters truly preferred imperfect, or just got tired of fakes trying to look flawed. The girl looks at you. Do you think they'll sell? You pause. Some. She nods slowly, then picks up a pot with a blistered bottom, and the ones that don't, they remind us of what? That nothing survives fire unchanged. She thinks about that for a long time, then places the flawed pot on a shelf, not in shame, but almost like a trophy. Later, You cart a few of the best pieces to town. The market is noisy, lively fishmongers yelling prices, vendors squatting behind pyramids of yams and rice cakes. A child plays a bamboo flute badly near the shrine entrance, and two women argue over the cost of eel skewers. You lay out the pots, people pass, some pause. One old man fingers a green glazed bowl and nods. How much? You name a price. He laughs. You lower it. He buys too. The girl beams. Sales trickle in enough to trade for barley, salt, and even a bolt of linen that will become someone's new robe. The coin feels light in your pouch, but not empty. It feels earned by afternoon. You've bartered your way to a modest but decent meal: grilled mackerel, sticky rice, and a small bottle of plum wine. The three of you eat in the shade of a silk shop awning, watching a stray cat try to sneak into a tofu stall. I think this one's ready for her own stall, your partner says, nodding toward the girl. She rolls her eyes. Please, I'd paint frogs on all the pots. No one would buy them. You grin. Monks might. Back home you store the leftovers. The girl washes the soot from her arms, the water swirling grey in the basin. You sit with your back to the wall, sipping the last of the wine, watching the wind bend the reeds outside. The firing is over. The pots have been judged, and somehow, despite everything, the failed glazes, the cracks, the unpredictable heat, it feels like a win. You look at her. Want to fire again next month? She doesn't hesitate. Yes. There's a beat. Then she adds, but I'm making a frog-shaped teapot next time. You groan, but you smile. The fire always calls again. That's the truth of it. Even when it breaks you, even when it sings your mistakes in full color, it calls. You hear it already. Low, soft, warm, waiting. The days after a kill firing settle like ash, quiet, slow, laced with equal parts pride and critique. You go about your chores with the lingering smell of charcoal in your clothes and the feel of dry clay still etched into your hands. There's a rhythm to it now. Life pulls you forward, but the memory of fire hums underneath everything. The girl is back at the wheel. Not even 3 days have passed since the last batch cooled, and already she's reshaping more clay. Her movements are smoother, now less guesswork, more memory. You watch her work in silence, her brow furrowed in focus. The pot slowly rising from the spinning disc like a promise. Don't forget to compress the base. You murmur, I wasn't. She replies, but you both know she almost did. Outside, the sun slants through clouds. It's the season when the days shrink quietly, not with fanfare but with that subtle bite of chill in the morning. Harvests are winding down. The markets are flush with dried persimmons, salted fish, and gossip about winter forecasts. You go to gather reeds from the riverbank, feet brushing through frost-glazed grass. You carry a curved knife in one hand and a bundle of twine in the other. These reeds will be baskets, matting, and sometimes, when splintered, finally used to bind lids or reinforce weak joints on pots. It's peaceful out here. Just the wind, the water, and your own breath. A crane watches you from across the shallows, tall and still as a statue. You nod at it, out of habit. The bird doesn't return the gesture, but it doesn't fly off either. There's a quiet understanding between those who spend their lives standing in rivers. You return to find the girl, holding up a bowl, asking whether the foot ring is wide enough. It is, barely. Historians still argue whether certain pottery shapes originated for function or fashion. You say, checking the weight in your palm. Some say the tea bowl aesthetic was mostly a marketing trick. She smirks. Still works. You chuckle. So does snake oil. As the days slide on, you revisit the broken pieces from last week. The ones that cracked, warped, or simply missed their mark. Some are beyond saving, but others, well, they have potential. And you've been meaning to teach her kintsugi, the art of repair. You bring out the lacquer and the powdered gold. Carefully, reverently, you show her how to paint the fracture lines, to dust them with shimmer, to turn brokenness into a kind of rebirth. At first, she hesitates. Won't it look fake? Only if you lie about it, you answer. But if you own the scarret's art, she gets it. You can see it in her face. A few hours later, she's tracing gold into a jagged line that runs along the lip of a formerly shattered teacup. When it dries, it looks like lightning was caught mid-strike and turned to metal. Quirky tidbit of the day. Kintsugi wasn't just a practical technique, became a philosophy. Whole schools of thought in Japan evolved around the idea that imperfection wasn't a flaw to hide, but a story to tell. Samurai would even commission broken weapons or armor to be repaired with gold, believing that a sword that survived was more honorable than one that never broke. Back in the studio, a customer visits a monk from the mountain temple who likes lopsided bowls and quiet company. He buys one of the repaired pieces without flinching at the gold seams. "Strong piece," he says simply, "reminds me of myself." You don't comment. You just bow. Evenings now come earlier. The fire pit crackles before dinner, and the girl has taken to reading out loud from scrolls you keep tucked in a wooden chest. Parables, fables, recipes with ridiculous proportions. One claims a single eel can feed 17 people if served, alongside sufficiently large amounts of rice and prayer. You correct her pronunciation once. She glares. You stop. She's improving. One night, as you both sip warm barley tea and stare out at the frost-silvered garden, she asks something different. "Do you think they'll last?" You tilt your head. "The pots? No. Us? Any of this? Ah." The big questions always arrive in silence, don't they? You take a long breath. Pots break, glazes chip, roofs leak. But if we're still sitting here, mending, shaping, and asking questions, then yes, I think it lasts. She nods slowly. You can tell she wanted a longer answer. But maybe that was the one she needed. The next morning, she surprises you. She's teaching a neighbor's child how to wedge clay. The boy giggles as he punches the lump too hard, sending a chunk flying across the studio. She doesn't scold him. She laughs, teaches, corrects. Gently you lean in the doorway, arms folded, and just watch. Turns out, fire isn't the only thing that transforms clay. Patience does. So does teaching, so does love, and as the smoke from your morning tea curls toward the rafters, you realize something strange. You don't miss the days when you worked alone. You don't miss the silence. You don't even miss the perfection, because now, every crooked pot, every imperfect shape, every gold seam scar, tells your story, and you wouldn't trade that for any flawless vessel in the world. The first real snow doesn't fall so much as whisper. One moment, you're chopping wood with a steady rhythm. The next, you glance skyward and see them flakes, soft as powdered rice, floating down like tiny paper charms, let loose by the wind. You hold still for a moment, axe mid-air, just watching them melt on your sleeves. Inside, the girl has lit the fire early. She's got a pot turning slowly on the wheel, her hands pink from the chill but still steady. The air smells like damp clay and sweet bean pastes. Someone in the village must be cooking already. You bring in the logs. She glances up, sees the snow on your shoulders, and grins. First snow, or the gods finally drop their laundry. You mutter, shaking it off. The cold comes in with you, slinking around your ankles like a lazy cat. You throw on more layers, your patched indigo robe, thick wool socks, a scarf someone knitted you 3 winters ago, still clinging to the smell of camphor. You help her fire the kill later that afternoon. It's always a tense moment. Will the temperature hold? Will the glazers behave? Will the new batch survive the dragon's breath? The snow keeps falling, soft, persistent, patient. The kill, by contrast, roars with life. You both huddle near it after sealing the door, cheeks flushed, breath curling in the air. "This," she says, "is the warmest place in the world right now." You nod, and probably the loudest. Quirky tidbit: traditional anagama kilns, those long tunnel-like beasts carved into hillsides, could burn continuously for days. Potters would take shifts feeding the fire, sleeping in short bursts, waking to adjust airflow and check on glowing embers like overprotective parents. You once stayed up for 40 hours straight during a particularly stubborn firing. Hallucinated. A tanuki critiquing your glazed choices. "Too drippy," he had said, sipping tea from a non-existent cup. The girl has never had the pleasure. Not yet. Historians still argue whether these long firings were strictly necessary or just a show of commitment to the craft, but most agree on one thing: the community that formed around the kiltha, shared labor, the whispered jokes, the bleary-eyed meals by firelight. That's where the soul of the pottery truly lived. That evening, after the fire is steady and the snow blankets the world in hushed reverence, you both go for a walk. The village is transformed. Roofs wear thick white caps. Lanterns glow like tiny suns caught in a snow globe. Footsteps crunch beneath you, sharp and satisfying. She tosses a snowball at you. It hits your chest and falls apart like bad clay. "You missed." You say, "I aimed for your ego." She smirks. You retaliate. The battle is short, but epic too. Artists armed with cold fluff and questionable aim. Laughter echoes down the empty street. A dog barks in the distance, confused but intrigued. You both fall into a snowbank. Breathless, the stars above are sharp tonight. No clouds left, just pinpricks of frozen fire. You look over. Her nose is red. Her eyes are alive. You reach out, brush snow from her sleeve, and feel something else melt inside you. Later, back at the workshop, you light the small brazier and huddle under blankets. She brings out a project, clay flute, slender and unfinished. The holes are uneven. The body has a wobble. It won't play right. She sighs. You take it, lift it to your lips, and blow. The sound is strange, wavering, a little haunting, but beautiful, in the way wind chimes are when you're sad. Perfect. You say dot. She raises an eyebrow. No one ever said songs had to be polite. She takes it back and smiles. That night, you fall asleep with the sound of wind moving across the roof and her fingers tapping out rhythms in the dark, testing future melodies. In your dreams, you're back at the riverbank, crane beside you, snow falling not from clouds but from branches shaking loose their burdens. A small pot sits in your hands, still warm from the kiln, not perfect, but somehow just right, and in the distance, laughter, the kind you only hear when you're finally not alone. By the time the first thaw begins, the snow is less magical and more stubborn. It clings to the edges of rooftops, like it forgot it had somewhere to be. The streets are packed with slush and half-frozen puddles. You slip twice on your way to the market, once catching yourself with a heroic wobble that nearly costs you your dignity and your basket of pickled radish. Still, you make it. Inside. The air smells like wet straw and ambition. Vendors call out half-heartedly. It's too early in the season for their full charm to thaw. The girl stays behind today's glazing, and once she starts, nothing short of divine intervention can drag her away. You buy salt, rice, a few dried fish wrapped tightly in leaves, and, on a whim, a small packet of red dye. She likes surprises. Outside, a street performer juggles small stones with only 3 fingers. A child watches, wide-eyed, holding a wooden puppet, missing an arm. The air hums with the slow reawakening of spring. By noon, the sun peeks out, timid but trying. The snow begins to hiss as it melts. Tiny rivers form along the ditches, carrying bits of straw, petals, and lost coins toward the drains. You stop to warm your hands over a brazier someone's set out on the curb. Smoke curls like a sleepy snake. When you return, she's still bent over her work. Clay bowls, dozens of them, each with a faint ripple near the lip. I hate them, she says. They're perfect. You answer, setting the fish down. They're too thin. You crouch beside her, pick one up, turn it gently in your hands. The glaze catches the light, faintly lavender in the shadows. Thin means light. Light means elegant. Elegant means expensive. She snorts. Elegant means cracked during firing. Quirky fact. Some Japanese potters, especially in raku, cracks the imperfections were seen as part of the piece's character. In fact, some cracks were even highlighted with gold lacquer, in a practice called kintsugi, turning breakage into beauty. I could try kintsugi, she mumbles, almost to herself. You're not allowed to break bowls just to practice. You say too late. Historians still argue whether kintsugi was ever considered high art or more of a sentimental craft. Either way, the philosophy behind it that things can break and still be beautiful feels more relevant the older you get. You spend the afternoon reinforcing the garden wall. The winter had not been kind to the bamboo fence, and several slats lean like drunk old men. She joins you halfway through, sleeves rolled, hair tied back, eyes still lined with kill-dust. Together, you work in silence. The good kind. A neighbor passes, her toddler wobbling beside her, both of them wrapped in bright saffron shawls. The child points at your patchy fence and claps. Beautiful. She squeals. You bow deeply. Thank you, great critic. That night, the wind changes. A warmer current from the south brings the smell of moss and wet earth. Frogs start up again, tiny voices croaking their slow return to life. You sit beneath the eaves, sipping warm sake from mismatched cups. The dye you bought now stains her fingertips. She tried mixing it with glaze and ended up painting her own hands instead. Next time, gloves, she mutters. No, you reply. Next time, try the cat. She laughs, a quick spark of sound. That warms you more than the drink. She asks about your dreams. You shrug. I don't always remember them. I do, she says. Last night I was climbing a tree made of clay. Every branch was hollow. When I blew into them, they sang. What did they sing? She leans against your shoulder. That's the part I forgot. Later, you lie in bed, her arm draped over your chest, her breath even, slow. The windows cracked open just enough to let in the sound of water dripping from the roof. Somewhere in the dark, you hear the soft click of a bamboo chime, the same one that broke last year, and she insisted on fixing. The notes are uneven, slightly off. Perfect. And in that imperfect rhythm, you feel your body melt into the mat, your heartbeat slowing to match the music. You wonder briefly what people will say centuries from now about your time. Will they understand? Will they argue? Will they get caught up on the cracks or see the bowl as whole? Doesn't matter. You decide. History might be written by the loud, but life is lived in the quiet. Morning breaks with the sound of sweeping. A broom of bundled twigs scrapes the courtyard stones with that familiar rhythm. Soft, stubborn, steady. You open one eye. She's already up, hair pinned lazily, tunic stained with whatever she was experimenting with last night, possibly dye, possibly soup. You roll over and pretend to sleep. It lasts 6 seconds. You promise to fix the door. She calls without looking. I promised no such thing. She smiles, not buying it for a moment. Eventually, you rise, stretch, feel all the usual twinges. Your back has a new complaint today, somewhere between your right shoulder and the concept of ambition. You pull on your robe, splash cold water on your face, and step out into the day. The sky's painted with early spring haze, that milky sort of light that makes everything look a bit softer, like it's being remembered instead of lived. Breakfast is rice, miso, and a half-stolen pickle. You steal it. She lets you then. The door. It's not so much broken as dramatic. It hangs at an angle, like it's too tired to hold itself together anymore. You prop it up, realign the hinge with a wedge of old sandal, and tie a new cord through the loop. Good as new, you declare. Good as adequate, she replies. As you work, a delivery arrives, a young boy with a cart carrying a wrapped bundle. She lights up. Its clay. She ordered it last month from a supplier downriver. Apparently, this batch has a higher grog ratio, which you're pretty sure is Potter code for more stubborn, while she tears into it like it's a feast. You take a walk to the edge of the village, past the canal, past the shrine, past the old woman who sells paper charms that flutter even when there's no wind. You think about the past winter, the quiet ache of cold nights, the silence broken by the sound of her humming, the way even bleak days are less lonely when they're shared. Near the trees, you find something unexpected, new shoots poking through the mud, green and tender and wildly optimistic. You crouch, touch one. It wiggles slightly, proud, and then you hear it. Laughter from the shrine steps. Children playing some invented game, sticks and string, and rules that make no sense. One of them points at you. You're the monster, he shouts. You roar, arms up, eyes wide. They scatter, shrieking in glee. You walk back home grinning like an idiot. Inside, she's already coated in clay dust, muttering about air bubbles and pinch points. She waves a damp hand in your direction. Need more firewood. You groan. You need a servant. I have one. He's just noisy. So you go. The firewood pile is low, but manageable. You break apart an old branch, careful not to disturb the neighbor's Courtesans, the same one that keeps stealing your laundry and pretending it's doing you a favor. You return, arms full, just in time to see her lift a finished bowl from the wheel. It's different, rounder, smoother, more confident. She doesn't say anything, just looks at it, then looks at you. Maybe this one won't crack. You nod, but she already knows. Quirky fact: some old kilns in Japan had such strong reputations that potters believed just being fired there made a piece lucky. Even now, collectors can tell where a bowl was fired by its glaze pattern, the ash marks, the shape of its foot. Historians still argue whether early Japanese kill placement was more about engineering or ritual, heat retention versus mountain gods, practicality versus reverence. But you've seen the way she bows before loading the kill, just a little, just in case. That night, you help her stack the pieces inside, carefully, slowly, like setting out hopes in fragile armor. She lights the fire. It begins with a whisper, then a crackle, then a low, steady roar. You both sit outside, backs to the wall, watching smoke curl into the night. No words, none needed. Later, over bitter tea and roasted chestnuts, she asks, if you could go anywhere, just once, where would you go? You think for a while, then say, right here. But 10 years ago, why? To find you sooner. She throws a chestnut at your head. You catch it. Victory. That fire burns on. Inside. The bowls face their trial. Outside. Stars shimmer like secrets. Too shy to speak. You'll lean your head back and let the warmth seep in. No ambition. No legend. No legacy. Just this, and it's enough. Morning arrives, not with urgency, but with a slow exhale. The world feels softer after Killfire nights. There's a hush that sits over the courtyard, like even the goats are waiting to see if the pots survived. You're first to wake, surprisingly. She's curled up on her mat, one hand still smudged with clay, a dried thumbprint on her cheek like a tiny fossil from yesterday's ambition. You resist the urge to touch it, and instead tiptoe outside. The kill is still warm. You crouch beside it, ear close, listening not for sound, but for silence, the kind of quiet that means success, not shattering. Eventually, she joins you, bleary-eyed, wrapped in a faded indigo robe. No words, just a glance, a nod, and you both begin. Unsealing a kill is a sacred kind of gamble. Each layer peeled back is part archaeology, part hope. The heat tickles your face. The smell is earthy, mineral-rich, with that faint sweetness of ash. And then there, it is. The pot. Ho, intact, slightly wobbly, but only if you squint. She lets out a breath, like she's been holding it all season. Success. You reach out, brush your fingers across its curve. Still warm, still breathing. Quirky tidbit. Some potters whispered blessings into their vessels before firing, believing the spirit of the clay would listen. Others carved tiny marks beneath the glazer, secret only they knew, like a personal wink to the universe. She doesn't bless hers, not aloud, anyway. But you've seen the way she rests her palm on each finished piece, the pause, the pressure, like she's sealing in part of herself. You carry the pot inside like it's priceless, because it is. She lines it up with others' failed ones, chipped ones, hopeful ones. Her shelf is a museum of persistence, and now, a small success stands among them like it belongs, because it does. Later, you head to market together. The sun is bright, the path dusty, and your sandals squeak with each step. She hums some old folk tune about a rooster who thinks he's a god. It's off-key. You like it anyway. The market is its usual chaos. Spice traders shouting about cinnamon that'll cure your marriage. Kids chasing one-eyed dogs. Monks trying to convert chickens unsuccessfully. You trade 2 jars of pickled lotus root for a new carving knife. She eyes a length of red silk but doesn't say anything. You make a note to come back later. Lunch is simple rice balls, salty fish, and a stolen orange you don't talk about. On the way home, she pauses by a tree, one of the big ones, gnarled and smug with age. She ties a ribbon to one of its branches. For the next pot, she says. You raise an eyebrow. Superstition. She shrugs. Motivation. Historians still argue whether tree offerings in rural Japan were spiritual rituals or just tradition for tradition's sake. Some say it's devotion. Others say it's nostalgia wrapped in habit. But watching her fingers linger on the fabric, you figure maybe it's both, or neither, or something else entirely. Back home, you collapse in the shade, drinking barley tea that tastes like someone once showed it a flower and then forgot the rest of the recipe. She sits beside you, sketching something in the dirt with a stick, a design, a new shape, maybe for the next bowl, maybe for the next life. You watch her quietly. Think about the seasons behind you, the ones ahead, and the now, the gentle hum of cicadas, the scent of wet clay, the familiar ache in your knees. That's oddly comforting. She glances up. You're thinking too loud, thinking about figs, liar. But she smiles. Evening arrives with golden fingers. Shadows stretch like cats. Someone's playing a flute badly in the distance. It might be a love song, or just the sound of someone losing a bet. You eat dinner beside the kill, watching embers glow faintly. You talk about everything and nothing. About whether frogs are lucky. About what name you'd give the moon if it ever asked. About how love sometimes looks like a cracked pot that still holds water. Then you go inside, wash your hands, blow out the lamp, and lie down. Hearts quietly full. The stars blink above like tired storytellers, and you sleep, not like the tired, do, but like the contented word count. 1096. The story fades now, like ink soaked into old cloth. The fire is low, the air is warm, and the soft hush of distant night begins to wrap around you. Your breath settles, slow and calm. Outside, somewhere beyond this dream, the world still turns. The fields still wait for footprints. The kill still holds its heat. But none of it presses on you now. You've seen seasons pass like brushstrokes on old paper. You've planted dreams into dust and watched them bloom or wobble or break. You've laughed at cracked bowls and chased ghosts through crowded streets. You've stood beside someone who never stopped trying, and now you lie still, not from fatigued, but from fullness, a kind of peace that doesn't shout. It just is. You remember the ribbon on the tree, the secret smile of a pot that finally held, the echo of a flute, stubbornly off-key, and you realize not every life is made of fireworks and glory. Some are quiet triumphs. Unseen, uncelebrated, and yet completely, utterly sacred. So rest now, let your shoulders soften, let your thoughts drift, like riverboats on still water. There's no need to paddle, just float. You've earned it, you've arrived, and if tomorrow brings more mud, more smoke, more questions, you'll meet them, like always, with clay on your hands, and love in your bones. Sleep well, traveler.